last week they had the skill set. I've talked about twice. They have the skill set to run
click
restaurants.
backwards?
I think Josh is going to remain hands off. Now,
That guy needs help.
same class, Chris to some classes, so he can go with restaurant right? But other than that, it should be pretty smooth sailing.
See, now we finally have
His interaction should be relatively minimal. Other than
Well,
coordinating things with them.
Well,
yeah,
Coordinating
that's
your personal one.
Service
But
phone,
not
Microsoft What?
They know what they're doing.
I used that one,
Right.
and instead of pulling it up to
Getting
full
something like
screen,
that is to get
it gave me this
Knows
without
what they're
the
doing. Yeah.
drop down.
But if there's a golf event,
problems
today, they're going to put the cards out on it.
bookmarks.
Yeah.
The tabs.
Yeah.
There's
So I was just seeing,
Other than that,
I see, I got the actual, see, I got the bookmarks right here.
Hopefully it'll be good. I'm looking forward to it. The space is just gorgeous.
yeah,
Really nice.
It's really nice, yeah.
so it didn't open it in,
I think they got technical there.
Technical,
Yeah.
technical difficulties.
I think Adobe Green. I got Adobe Green.
So which one are you?
there's one on the left.
I hope that
Or you're
gonna have to log out.
I had to touch enough things.
They really shouldn't need to. No, you get a log out. Oh man, the judge is after the airport. He should be before. Great.
Yeah, no.
Hopefully they'll make that adjustment.
Are you live and streaming
There it is.
right now?
I think so. We just haven't called to order yet because the mayor's having technical issues.
Because he's on the list, he's after that.
I'll ask the mayor to move it on up.
Archer went out and played yesterday and today, so.
There he is.
Was it dry enough to
That way,
play?
if you want.
Yeah, I mean, there's some holes that are just mushy.
Yeah.
But I think I found a few things, so keep your fingers crossed.
It's what you get in personal.
You found a few things that you hope you win?
Because we're,
Company provided.
Arch and Dick and I and Dale have a friendly bet against Dave, Josh, Gerald Perrin, and Tim
I
Cook.
got Braille in there.
So that's why we want to do this, so you can take more money.
I see.
Yes.
If I lose mine, I usually just lean over and look.
And I'm not worried about
What time are y'all playing tomorrow?
Start at 9 o'clock.
I'll still make the office, unless you play real slow.
Well,
Because I could come out and heckle you on the 7th, that's all I'm saying.
Well, you know, you could just have some Bloody Marys for us when we get to that.
If I weren't gonna be at work, I gotta go into the office for a little bit tomorrow. But I would.
but you know, Dave's already smack talking. He said he has no fear of
That,
losing
yeah,
money.
I heard that.
I wouldn't. I've seen him on the 7th a lot. He's got that hole down.
Both these two players are very good. So.
I know, but you're probably playing below par on the 7th because I see how you shoot. I know where you shoot every single time, and you got the money shot on that hole. I'm just saying that's your
That's my hole, yeah.
That's your hole.
That is my hole. That and 4 is my hole.
So if you're already behind before you get to my house, you're in trouble.
We're in trouble. Okay,
Just saying.
we'll take that under advisement.
So bad you can sit in the chair and see the only thing he's gonna get.
Because I tried to come your way.
I know exactly right, but I know where you. I don't want to give away your secrets, but I know exactly where it lands every time. I think you.
Fly right past.
So you're on the right-hand side.
Mm-hmm.
Once you get past the tree and the bunker on the right side.
I'm before the tree and the bunker.
Which one did you?
That's why I get all of the golf balls in my yard.
Oh, got you.
All the golf balls. But you know what I will do is if we get out of here early enough, I'll toss a bunch of golf balls over the fence for you, so you can go scrounge it.
But you know, I've never hit one into your yard.
Well, I know because that's your hole.
That'd be a natural slice.
Yeah, it would.
It is a natural slice.
This guy here.
See, when I try to hit it real hard, I will hit a draw. That'll be the latest.
Yeah.
The last about a month ago, I hit one up there, and I tried to hit it out, and it took me 3 shots before I finally got out of the trash. And that was the first time I've been that deep into the stuff.
I hear you.
Most of the balls that are in my
Now,
yard
when
have
you
bounced off.
when you miss, Is your Mrs. Slice?
Yeah.
Rolling.
They are,
That's a
My
long way to
missus is
hit it
like-
off.
Okay.
yeah, and they're hitting off the
When I
tees.
miss,
They're
if I try to
hitting-
click
I
the
lose probably
preview,
3 or 4
Yeah.
windows a year.
Ready, really?
Yeah.
I've been working at trying not to
Windows,
swing
coverage,
hard.
and
yeah.
I do, but the deductible's $900, and so it's
Just a
like, well, on
smooth
my
tempo.
homeowner's insurance.
told God.
So it's like, do I really want to
If I
call
miss a
it
shot,
every
it's 'cause I
time,
tried to
or just replace the whole?
Once I do that,
it's kind of one of those things that we do on the golf course.
I don't care if it goes 5 feet.
We've never had any of this stuff. The ones that get me are when they hit it in the front yard and they hit the cars.
Because I feel like
Because I have
it's
golf
harder
ball
to get
dents
the
in
ball to
the
go
front
through
of my
more.
cars.
And you're just better off taking more and still swinging.
Swing, yeah, yeah. But it disturbs me when I watch the pros and
I was just I know.
This lady came out and got us.
it's a nice thing for a swing. It just doesn't look like
It needed to be,
Paid those 220-yard threes and they're hitting 5.
we had to
I mean, I can maybe get there with a 3 if I trust it.
Yeah,
So, well, you gotta remember, most of those guys,
yeah.
All right, notice hereby given that the Lago Vista City Council is holding a regular meeting on Thursday, October 4th, 2018, beginning at 6:36 p.m. in the City Council chambers at City Hall, 5803 Thunderbird, Lago Vista, Texas, as prescribed by VTCA Government Code Section 551.041, to consider the following agenda items. Items do not have to be taken in the same order as shown in the meeting notice. Sandra, please note we have all of our council members here tonight. We have yourself and Josh, our city manager, Danny, our police chief, Dottie, our legal representative, Dave with IT. Let's see, who else do I have back here? Jan with library,
Eric is on the back.
Star with finance, Roy with building, with development, Eric with our city engineer. Did I miss anybody? Yes, I got Dave.
Okay, go.
All right. That is everybody. If you would, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, citizen comments. In accordance with the Open Meetings Act, council is prohibited from acting or discussing other than factual responses to specific questions. Any items not on the agenda. I do not have anybody signed up for city comments. I have a few that have signed up, but those are for items that are already on the agenda. So if there's anybody in the audience who would like to make a comment at this time, please let me know. All right, I am going to take advantage of this opportunity, and I am going to read a statement for everybody to hear. In a recent post that I made on Nextdoor, I wrote about the history and the timeline surrounding the affordable housing complex coming to Lago Vista. In that post, I wrote about what citizens who put together a petition said about a possible walking quorum conducted by several current and former city council members. What I wrote and the way in which I wrote it was confusing and was construed to read as me making the accusation that a walking quorum had actually happened and a conspiracy impacted the vote on the resolution. I want to be clear that I am not making that accusation. No proof of a walking quorum was ever ruled upon, and I apologize to those current and former council members that I impacted by my statement. As I've said in other posts, this complex is coming to Lago Vista. Instead of recounting history inaccurately or publishing false information about it, we as a city need to find out all the facts and embrace it. We need to focus on how to make sure the developer and property management company comply with all the rules and regulations required by the Texas Department of Housing and Community Affairs, and working together, the citizens of Lago Vista, city staff, and your elected officials will make Vista Bella a success of which we can all be proud. Thank you. All right, we now move on to items of community interest. Pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551.0415, the city, excuse me, the city council may report on any of the following items. A, expressions of thanks, gratitude, and condolences. B, information regarding holiday schedules. C, recognition of individuals, i.e. proclamations. D, reminders regarding city council events. Reminders regarding community events. And health and safety announcements. This time, does anybody have anything they would like to express?
Mayor, I would like to be recognized. First of all, I'd like to remind all of council and also the people out there that we are now, as of last meeting, conducting our meetings under rules of procedure, which we just adopted. And so that means for the most of us, it means that you can only speak when you're acknowledged and when you have been recognized by the mayor. Thank you, Mayor.
Yes. Ms. Bland.
I would just wanted to remind voters that early voting will be held here on October 30th.
October 30th. Anyone else?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I would just like to let the Chamber of Commerce golf tournament is tomorrow, so if anyone wants to come out and check it out, or if there's someone that is a late signer and wants to try to participate in it, feel free to let the chamber know, because it should be a big success and a lot of fun.
Thank you. All right, I have a couple. I believe October 20th, 21st. Is that it? Is that the weekend? We have a cleanup event. And I know it's going to be at the Green Center. I don't know all the details. Do you know more details?
Mayor, no.
Okay. I know it's not for household hazardous waste.
Yeah, no batteries.
Yeah.
It was
Take
in,
furniture and appliances, no freedom. It was in your water bill.
it was.
Yes, check your water bill. There was a thing going out. If not, call the city hall, come up here or something. But we have a cleanup event October 20th, 21, citywide.
Starts earlier that week, and
Yeah.
all the details are on the chamber calendar.
Details are also on chamber calendar for those.
There's going to be some weekday opportunity for those who want to come during the week. That was nice. I think it was Wednesday, Thursday, Friday.
Wednesday, Thursday.
Yeah.
So it's a 4-day event, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So the 19th through 18th through the 21st, I think, or something like that. Anyway, that third weekend. Also, November 3rd and 4th, we have another community cleanup event that will be taking place in the Coyote Trail area of town. It'll be very similar to our cleanup in that we will be picking up solid waste. But that will be more localized. Volunteers, community outreach, and other people will be assisting in trying to clean up one section of town, and specifically with this effort. During this event, we will be having a small household hazardous collection event. It will include oil, antifreeze, paint, and electronics. At this time, no batteries or tires, but we will be having some small household hazardous waste cleanup, and that'll be in the parking lot at the swimming pool. We're gonna put it all in the pool. Just saying. Anyway,
Mayor,
what else? We have something else.
Monday's a holiday. It is Columbus Day. However, city offices will be open
I think he
on
was taken out of the history books.
Monday. If you'd like for us to not work Monday, if you just tell us now, we'll not work. But as of right now, we're working.
You really want me to reply to that?
Just thinking it was a chance.
We'll talk that in executive. All right, anything, what else?
Mr. Mayor, we do have the trunk or treat on October 31st with the police and the library working together, I believe. So everybody can come out and have trick or treating and meet the police and see some cars and other fun things.
Be a good night.
And it's National Night Out, right?
Yes, sir.
National Night Out is the police event or the city event. Trunk or treat. Trunk or treat is the police event.
Actually, National Night Out is generally done in August, but we like to do it in October so we can sponsor this trunk or treat, and it works out great with the library. It's just a nice, safe place for folks to be able to bring their kids. Good event.
Thank you. Is there a haunted house on?
We have not had any word back about that activity.
Okay, I won't mention.
Yes, Jan.
Back to the voting information, I ordered some Legal Women voter guides, and I hope they'll be delivered in the next couple of weeks. And we also have voter registration cards in the library.
All right, voter registration cards available in the library. Applications, if it's not too late. I know you got to be registered 30 days prior. I think that gives you till Saturday, October 6th, because the election is November 6th, I believe. And she will have the League of Women voter guides in the library. Thank you, Jan. Anyone else? All right, we will move on to presentations. Number one, report on the annual review and evaluation of the library long-range plan. And let's see.
Okay. Hello, my name is Sharon Mackett, and I have served on the Library Advisory Board for 4 years now. I'm currently the chair. In fact, council members will be soon considering my reappointment in this year coming up, so I'll ask for your support now. Thank you to the City Council for your ongoing interest in the Lago Vista Public Library. I have found out by interviewing staff that each and every one of you and your family use the library on a regular basis, and I am so thrilled that you're all a part of it. I want a special thank you to Kevin Sullivan, who's our library liaison. We absolutely love you and look forward to you coming back at each meeting. One thing Kevin gets to see when he shows up at our meetings is a list of what we do at the library. And I have a copy for you. Check out the first number. 21,681 people visited the library this past year. End of year was just September 30th. So we're really proud that we serve people every day, 6 days a week, and we want to keep doing that. A year and a half ago, the council approved Resolution 17-1696, and you all have a copy in your packet. This year, just recently, we approved an update, sort of our 5-year plan. Our report comes out of a survey that the Library Advisory Board conducted from April to June of 2016. We had over 200 respondents, and they gave us important input on what we can do with the library to improve it and things like that. I'm not going to go over each item. If you want to hear it, I will definitely get Jan to do it. But I want you to know that everything we do is there for your review, and that we work every day to make the library better. We work with the schools and the teachers. We work with organizations like the Lions Club and artist groups, support groups, the Alzheimer's and the cancer support groups. We invite professionals in to do seminars. The Medicaid care people just were in, and we had a nice big crowd in the meeting room for that. We successfully recruit and train volunteers. We maintain a website, and we send out a newsletter. We represent the library in the community, at chamber functions, women clubs, you know, wherever we are, the library is represented. So this night, I'm asking you to accept our report and the annual work of the committee, and trust that we're doing an excellent job for you and for the entire city. So, if you have questions, Jan has actually got a PowerPoint presentation that she'd share with you. Do you want to take the time to see it? Do you want more detail?
Yes, please.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very
There's people
much.
watching at home, they want to see this too, or at least know what we're talking about.
It's short. I won't bother introducing the long-range plan, because Sharon just did that, and you had that in your packets. But there were 6 main strategies that they looked at in that plan, and that's what we were reviewing this year. And that plan, actually, well, let me back up just a second. That plan included a mission statement of the library, the history of the library, which goes back to the 1980s, and it also includes our 2012-13 expansion, the demographics of Lago Vista, the survey that Sharon referred to, and library trends that they, from information they gathered from the Pew Research Institute, the Museum, Institute of Museum and Library Services. And then also we looked at the community needs and strategies. So there were 6 major strategies that they considered, and that was to expand the library and its services to reflect the ever-increasing needs of a vibrant, growing community. And we know our community is growing by the number of new homes, the Tessera subdivision, and the new apartment complex that you talked about. We wanted to provide technology services to the community, provide a wide range of books and publications that serve the needs and interests of the communities, to improve community awareness of the library and its services. You know, we still have people that walk in sometime and say, I've been out here 5 years. I didn't know we had a library. So I was thinking, okay. To effectively use and expand our library resources, and then to conduct that annual assessment to see what we've accomplished, what we still need to do. So the strategies that have been met very quickly, most of these things are ongoing. They're not going to just end with one accomplishment. But one of the first thing was to develop a user-friendly website and online services. And under that was to monitor the library technology services, which we do we do the computer and Wi-Fi use reports that I turn in on a weekly and monthly basis. On our website, we have not joined into the city's website because we had one that was provided free of charge from the state library. It's called the Cloud Platform, and it had links for us. And at some point, we may try to link on to to actually use the city's website, but for the amount of time it would have taken to convert, we're sticking with that one right now, and we have permission to do that. The 2.1B was to continue to update technology services, and we're always doing that with Dave Street helps us keep our software up to date. The Lago Vista Women's Club last year gave us a grant to purchase laptops. Councilman Sullivan donated 2 laptops. So we use those to offer computer classes that are taught by the members of the Women's Club. The next one was the strategy was to implement a library newsletter, which we've done with the MailChimp platform, and we send that out twice a month just to let people know what's going on in the library. And then to develop databases for research and collaborating with other institutions. And we have the TechShare databases that are authoritative and ad-free databases that are provided by the Texas State Library. We pay a minimum charge of $131 a year to get access to these that we could never afford on our own. And they are licensed for exclusive use of libraries and their patrons. And we just got the new Ancestry Library Edition for people doing genealogy work. And I know some of you have tried that, so that's becoming a popular one. Then strategies that have been met, promote the library through marketing and available media, an informational brochure. We already have one, so that's a done deal. Maintain a close relationship with Lago Vista Chamber of Commerce and other organizations. We do that with the Lions Club, the Lago Vista Women's Club. So that's an ongoing thing. And also we belong to the Central Texas Library System, which provides professional library advice to us, webinars, seminars, and they also have a listserv that we belong to. I think there are 206 libraries that belong to that, and we share information with each other. So if I have a problem and don't know how to handle something, I send something out there, and I have librarians from all over the state saying, hey, this is what we do, this is what worked or what didn't work. Request appropriate budget funding, we did that. And I had to laugh about this because in 2003, I looked at our budget. Our annual budget was $36,689. This year, it will be $197,118. So we've come a long way. Use volunteers. We do that on a daily basis. As anybody that comes in the library knows, we have volunteers at the front desk. They teach classes. They maintain our courtyard, the outside of the library. They teach. I don't know what we'd do without them, but it's the best group of volunteers I've ever seen in any place I've lived. Provide facilities that are welcoming and safe. We try very hard to make sure that nothing in there is dangerous for anyone. We keep an eye on anything that might cause harm. And then evaluate the long-range plan, which is ongoing. And then some strategies that have met some progress, and that was just to provide a place and support our library programs and instructional classes. We do that with programs like we had the Medicare program Monday. We had a nice turnout for that. Health, computer use, estate planning, arts and crafts. So we're always doing that. We're always reviewing the existing spaces, looking for a way to make some changes that would benefit the public. We definitely need some quiet space, but there's just no place to do that right now. That's going to take an addition, and it would be nice to have a larger children's section where kids can kind of be themselves and not bother somebody that's on the computer. Seek ways to accommodate community groups and homeschoolers. One of the things we're doing right now is Peggy Gibson, who is our volunteer children's coordinator, goes out to 2 different locations and does off-site story times. And we have the electronic magnifier for anyone that has sight impaired. We've had a couple of people with macular degeneration come in and read things with that. And then we recognize that we just need more space, and to increase our book collection, meeting rooms, that's just going to take more space. And then expand number of classes and group meetings. That's ongoing. We're always doing that. And we had a lady come to us this week asking if she could start a history book club. So, we try to do anything like that people want. And we have a new movie discussion group. And that's
books on history or the history of books?
Books on history.
Okay.
I think that's what she meant. I hope that's it. And then the last part here, almost the last part, strategies still in the strategies that have met some progress. Provide digital publications. We now have access to digital magazines through our Overdrive platform. You just have to have an up-to-date library card. To continue to update our book collection, that's ongoing. We're always weeding things out that are not relevant anymore or not being checked out and adding new things. Large print, we have added more large print, more up-to-date, current large prints. Improve access to electronic books. That's something that's a little bit out of our control because the access is controlled by the publishers of the books, and most of them only want one person at a time to have them, even though they're electronic. But we work with a consortium of other libraries to try to get them to loosen up some of their restrictions. Outside signage, we're dealing with that. Quarterly needs, requests to Friends of the Library, we ask them for things that are not in our budget, and they're very good about help us with books. In fact, they pay for the majority of our book cost. So probably 90% of our books are paid for by the Friends of the Library, and that was through a special deal the Friends made with the city when the city agreed to take the library on as a department. Staff development is always ongoing, webinars, training. And we're always seeking input from Lago Vista residents. If they have ideas, we'll look to see if we can find a way to fix it. And then last, there's strategies that have not seen any progress. And delivery services for disabled patrons. We have a volunteer right now who every Wednesday when she finishes work she takes books to a particular lady who cannot get out anymore. She's housebound. And we're talking to the Women's Club to see if they would help us do that. So that's something we actually are seeing some progress now since this report was done. And then expand the physical library to increase space. And so we know what that entails, money. And adding on to the meeting room. Initiate a self-checkout system. We have not seen that as a priority because we don't have lines waiting to check out, and we really don't have a place to put the self-checkout. Maintain a close relationship to the Lago Vista schools. That has changed since this too, because one of our staff contacted Cody Pruitt, who's an English teacher at the high school, and he was glad to come and take 2 boxes of classics that we donated to the students. You know, they don't have a library with physical books there. And he was glad to have them and said he would work with us any way he could. And requests for capital improvements, we've not made any requests this year. And then there was an idea to recruit a marketing intern. I don't know if that's something we will do in the future. Meredith is helping us a little bit with some of that. But does anyone have any questions?
I have a comment.
Yes, sir.
Input from the public. This just came up this past week. As many of y'all know, I have a Young Families Advisory Group. This is a group of under 40 type families that have school-age children that just advise me on things that their generation would like to see in our city. One thing, you don't see them at council meetings. And I wanted to know why. Well, they don't have childcare. They don't want to pay for childcare just for a 2-hour meeting. They came up with a suggestion that maybe the library, twice a month, could stay open late on those council meeting Thursdays and hold events for youth while the parents come over here and attend council meetings up to a certain point in time, not midnight, but so there's an input for you.
Okay, yeah, I saw
the
that.
library might could do to help our younger families attend council meetings.
I saw the request, and we're talking about it among the staff. It would require changing the policy for unattended children. And, you know, there's a few things to work out, but we are looking into it to see the possibilities are.
The question I had was whether or not you post the different events that you have at the library on our city website, on the calendar. Is that?
PJ Ellison, who's the other librarian, she's supposed to be sending them to Meredith, because Meredith has offered to do that. So I haven't checked lately, in all honesty, to see what's on there. So, but I'll be sure she's doing that.
Okay.
And we do put them on our Facebook page and several other.
I think as more people
Social
get used to using our website, that might be a good thing to do, because a lot of people will look there to see what events are
Right.
posted there.
Any place to get information out here, we'll certainly try. And then the chamber also posts them for us too. But I really thank you for your support. And I know a number of librarians I've talked to over the years do not have the kind of support that we have with their cities or counties. So we appreciate you very much. Thank you.
Thanks, Jan.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yep. All right, presentation number 2, Scenic City Update.
Mayor, my presentation is going to be fairly brief. I just wanted to report to council that I went through the mechanics of the evaluation of our application, and I had an hour-long conversation with Miss Ann Culver of Scenic Texas. So she stepped me through all the things that are going to be required of us when they do the evaluation. She reiterated the fact that the applications are accepted between January 1st and March 31st. That first quarter, they receive the applications, and then their second quarter, they turn around and actually do the evaluating. They have a 3-step process for evaluating applications. And then finally, after that 3-month period, they will then report to all the different cities that have applied, and they will give us a score sheet when that time comes along. And she said that would probably be in the early July timeframe. To do this application, requires the cities that have an interest in receiving a launch code, which I have. And so I think we're ready to go as far as that's concerned. She reiterated also that they can take applications anytime up through March 31st, but it's going to be a kind of a tedious process. One of the things that I learned, which I was unaware of, because in the seminar that I attended, we were told that there are several things that scenic cities are asked to provide, and that is proof that they have tree preservation, street landscaping, signage that are very much against billboards being erected. But in addition to that, they are now evaluating cities that have a trail system, and we're about to become involved with that sort of thing. And so that was a new item that they've added. And so we're going to do our level best to become a scenic city. One of the things that was, again, reiterated to us is that this is not just about being a beautiful city that has natural beauty. This is about having things, resolutions and ordinances in place to protect trees, to do landscaping, to guard against these billboards and things of that nature. So this is something that we have wanted to do, and I believe that it was acknowledged that Councilman Smith began to inquire about this a few years ago, but we're finally getting the support from council to go forward with this. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions? Comment?
Thank you for doing all that research. I think that that's a really good thing, not only for the just the beauty of the city, but also for our economic development, so that we can promote the city for
It's my
beauty.
pleasure.
So, Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
Arch, is there anything that we need to be doing to help make this happen?
Well, one of the things that I was told was that it would be important to have a team of people that would take the application segments and attack it separately. So I actually should have noted the fact that I asked Councilman Weatherly to help me, and he's agreed to help me. And I might need one more person to help to have a subcommittee of 3 people. If somebody wants to volunteer, or if the mayor would like to assign somebody.
I would prefer volunteers.
So, I mean, what does that entail? I mean,
It entails doing
Just us meeting and-
meeting and researching the various.
I'll help you out.
Thank you. I knew I could depend on Councilman Williams.
Well, and something that.
I was going to pressure him anyway.
And Arch,
Yes, sir.
you have 2 council members that are not seeking reelection. In a month's time, you would have 2 more people that might want to volunteer to assist you if you want to wait a month to
Include one of the new members.
include
maybe.
one of the.
Well, there's some preliminary things that I can do prior
Okay.
to that, but yes, that's a good idea.
Mr. Mayor, when they come on board, I'd be more than happy to back out.
Thank you for volunteering.
Yeah, I'll do my
We call that
preliminary.
voluntelling.
Yes.
Yeah. I won't let him get away with that.
All right, if there's no further discussion, number 3, Central Texas Clean Air Coalition requesting City of Lago Vista's participation as a supporting Clean Air Coalition member and participating in a new regional air quality plan for 2019-2023. And we would like to welcome our guest, Anton,
Yes.
Anton Cox.
Yep. And so I do have a PowerPoint presentation I can talk y'all through, or we can do this more of an open discussion where y'all ask questions about the letter that we sent out maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago. I wanted to respect y'all's time. I figure we might not have time to do both. I know the mayor sent
Do
over.
you have the PowerPoint?
Yes, I do. You want to see it?
I don't have a problem seeing it.
Give it to.
Can you do that? Are you able to do that?
The screen goes all blue, we know it wasn't very good.
But if that doesn't work, I can walk y'all through all of it.
Okay.
It's nothing too complicated. But this is in response to a letter that we sent out to the city maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago requesting y'all participate in the next regional clean air plan that we have. We're currently operating on the last year of our 5-year regional air quality plan, and so we're working on developing the next one, which will cover from 2019 to 2023. And it's the PDF there.
PDF.
All right. And there's no clicker or anything, is there? Yeah. Ah. All right, so just in case y'all don't know too much about the Capital Area Council of Governments, or CAPCOG for short, we're a regional planning organization, and these are some of our divisions that we operate under. So we do the 911, aging, Homeland Security. As the mayor mentioned, we have solid waste where we help fund some of these pickup events. And then I'm representing the air quality program today. Here's where we operate. We do the 10-county area. And then this is our executive committee. So on to the air quality program. The reason there is an air quality program is because there's a Clean Air Act, in which asks that, requires that they address, or that the states address issues regarding air pollution, haze, stratospheric ozone, climate change, things like that. Our air quality plan mainly focuses on ground level ozone, which is a criteria pollutant. Consequences of non-attainment, not meeting the standards set by the Clean Air Act, is up to 23 years of regulatory consequences. That can cause things like you need to do more transit planning, you need to do more, transportation planning, because you'll lose federal dollars for transportation projects. You'll have economic consequences. Lots of large plants and facilities like Samsung, who recently expanded their plant, they wouldn't have done that in this area if we weren't designated non-attainment, because private industry has to do more regulatory jumps to expand in these types of areas. So there's a number of added costs if you get designated non-attainment. Currently, these are the standards down the bottom row, and then the bar shows how close we are to exceeding those standards. And so we're 99% of the ozone standard, which is very, very close to exceeding it. The other ones we're doing a little bit better. We're not seeing them increase or decrease too much, but ozone is the one of concern, and it has been for 20 years now.
Is that the full 10 counties or just the Austin Round?
So they monitor the urban area. So that's the 5-county area, which will include Williamson, Travis, Hayes, Caldwell, and Bastrop counties. So the urban counties. And this has been the trend in the area. So we have seen a decrease in ozone levels over the years, but the standard keeps dropping. So they review the standard every 5 years, and then they can choose to remain the same or lower it. They reviewed it last in 2015, and they lowered it to 70 parts per billion. They may review it again in 2020. And we've done some analysis. If they leave it the same, we have maybe a 30-40% chance of exceeding it based off of past history. If they lower it to 65, which they did consider for the 2015 standard, there's about an 80% chance that we could be exceeding it based off of past trends. So, maybe if everyone changes their car to the newest car, our air quality would be a lot better, but based off of past trends, that's not happening.
Is that a national number or a regional number?
This trend is the Austin Metro. So this is regional, the 5 counties, but the standard is for the entire nation.
Does that include trucks?
Yes.
Like construction trucks?
Yes.
That would make it go higher?
Yep. The way they monitor this is they just have air quality monitors across the region, and so any air pollution that those monitors pick up would be part of this.
I guess my question is our trucks, construction trucks in particular, are they included in the measure? Or are they outside the measure?
No, they are included. So there are some standards for off-road vehicles as well as on-road vehicles.
So if we have a lot of growth in the region, we can expect more ozone?
Yes, that's correct. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
You said that the standard had been lowered to 70. What was it before?
It was at 75. That dotted line, if you can see it from where you are, was the previous standard, and that was the 2008 standard.
You know, by us being part of this, does that mean we'll have certain monitors in the city to?
Okay, so
know what
yeah,
actually goes
so
on in Lago?
right now, CapCog operates 8 monitors, and that's where the majority of our budget goes to. And actually, I have a slide that shows that. If I can, there we go. So those are the current the location of the current monitors in the region. So not every city or every county has a monitor, but not every city has a monitor. They're pretty pricey to operate, and they have some quantification, and they need to maintenance that they need to have recurring costs associated with them. So the closest one to Lago Vista would be that green dot, the Audubon Society CAMS 38. That's operated by the TCEQ, and that's actually one of the regulatory monitors. The 2 green dots considered regulatory monitors are the ones that the EPA will use to determine our compliance with federal standards.
And how close to Lago Vista is that monitor?
I didn't figure out the mileage difference on that, but it's pretty close to Lago Vista. I would say it's a little south west of here.
Okay.
So
because otherwise we just get swallowed up in Travis County, in the readings of Travis County.
yeah, and so that's one of the things is why CapCog has an air quality program. We have this Clean Air Coalition because it's a regional issue. What happens in, say, Austin, the pollution there travels upwind into, it goes up into Lago Vista, Cedar Park, Georgetown. It kind of travels over them on most days. And so it affects people outside of just the city. So a lot of times I go talk to people, especially when I go outside of city limits, and I'll say, this is a regional issue. You should take precautions if you have children or you're sensitive to air pollution, because a lot of times they'll see an ozone action day, which means there's high levels of ozone, and they'll go, that's just a city problem. But a lot of times that pollution is traveling upwind into their neighborhoods and things, and they don't even know. So it's not just an Austin issue. It's a regional issue, which is why we have the monitors that are going further outside of town. But there's not one inside of the city limits. The closest one would be that Audubon one.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
So is that monitor, or is that people can go online somewhere and get the readings off of that monitor?
Correct. And yeah, we have a website, our outreach website called Air Central Texas. We keep the air quality forecast and the air quality condition currently there. We also report it to TCEQ and the EPA, and they each have their own websites where people can go and check air quality as well. So yeah, these monitors do report to websites.
If we were to join the Clean Air Coalition, would we need to set up a monitor here within our city limits?
No, so that's not a requirement of the being part of the coalition. The main parts is going to be, since y'all are a public entity, you would need to designate someone to serve on the Clean Air Coalition, elected official, and they would attend our quarterly meetings. Our next one's November 14th, I believe. And at those meetings, they vote up and vote down different, they'll vote for the adoption of this next air quality plan. So things like that. And then you'll also designate a staff level person to serve on the advisory committee for that elected official. So to give them information more at a granular level so that y'all can so you have someone that's a little bit more of an expert on this stuff. And then the last thing that we had asked y'all to do is to adopt resolutions for protecting air quality. And when I sent the letter out, it did include some draft resolutions. Those are just sample resolutions. Maybe they're not applicable to everything you're doing. I believe I have a slide in here that this goes through kind of the commitments that we like all of our Clean Air Coalition members to make. So things like educating employees where feasible, if it's an ozone action day, let your employees telework, flexible schedules where that's allowed, things that the city can do on a city level to help reduce air pollution. And then include some things like fleet management. Don't operate your high polluting, engine or whatever you have on an ozone action day, or do it early in the morning because it has less impact than later on in the day. So we have some suggestions on things that cities and counties can do to help reduce their ozone impacts. That's the main focus of this plan. It's just to give all of our entities, give the community some things they can do to help reduce air pollution. And then the second part of that is reporting back to us on what they did do, so that if there ever is a situation where we're very close to non-attainment, we can tell the EPA, here are all the things we're doing, here's the things that we're going to do better, or here's the things that here's the impact we've had just on a local level. We don't need federal enforcement. So I kind of got out of order. I'll go back and see if there was anything of note back there. These are just some bullets of the things that our air quality program does over at CapCog. Air quality research analysis, and we do that based off of input from the Clean Air Coalition. So if you guys, like one of the studies we did was a cost of non-attainment analysis. So we'll get input from our stakeholders at Clean Air Coalition meetings, and they'll say, hey, we want to see more of this. One thing that we got at our last meeting was they wanted to see more workshops about things like how to reduce air pollution at a fleet level, things like that. So we're putting together a workshop so they'll know, hey, they can educate themselves on how to reduce air pollution that way. We track and implement the air quality plan. We coordinate outreach, we do technical assistance, and we do research for grant opportunities and help assistance with applying for those grants. And in the past, we have actually administered grants ourselves, but that's as funding is available. That's just a list of some of our previous air quality plans. So we've been doing this since 2012, and we've pretty consistently, every 4 or 5 years, renewed to a new plan. Gone over that. Here are some of the goals that we have established at previous meetings. The main goal of this plan would be to maximize the probability of staying in compliance of the NAAQS, that's the National Ambient Air Quality Standards, region-wide. And then our secondary goal is to minimize health and environmental impacts at regional air pollution. We have an air pollution target. That's something new for this plan. We're going to quantify all of the actions that all of our Clean Air Coalition members take. And then we're going to say, hey, you've made this big of an impact. And so we made the target to be between 0.7 and 0.1, or 0.7 and 1 part per billion of ozone reduced. And then those are the years and the counties that we operate in. And was there a question? Yeah.
I had a question. So you mentioned, you'd shown where we were sort of in a region. I know we're affected by other regions too.
Yes.
The wind movement.
Mhm.
As I feel like I'd heard somewhere that Houston was one of the poorest air quality cities in the country. Do we know what the effect from Houston on us is?
Yeah, and well, Houston's actually pretty small. So, but we do know it's about on any given day, depending on the wind direction and things like that, it's about 0.04 parts per billion.
Okay.
Much larger would be San Antonio. And so, yeah, we'll get really poor air quality, or vice versa. We affect San Antonio's air quality. San Antonio just got designated non-attainment for the 2015 standard, which now makes the Austin region the largest in the nation to be in attainment of all federal standards. But we've done modeling that says on any given day, San Antonio could affect us by like from 0.4 to 3 or 4 parts per billion. So it's much more significant. And then we, in turn, also have an effect on them. And more often, we have an effect on the Killeen Temple area.
If we miss it one day, are you considered non-attainment, or is it over a period of time that it's measured? How does that work?
Yeah, so it's based on a 3-year average. They'll take it's kind of a complicated statistic they use, but they look over the year and they'll say, this was your 4th worst day. And they'll take the 4th worst day for 3 years, and they'll average that. And if that average is above 70, you're designated non-attainment. But there's also more wrinkles that they don't look at it every year. So they're not going to look at it this year. So even though we know we're under, we're good. They're not looking at it this year. They're going to look at it again, and likely in 2019 or 2020. So we want to make sure that we're under those years, maybe a little further out if they get sued and other things get stuck in litigation, which happens a lot for the EPA. So, you know, we're pretty safe this year, and even next year, if we went over, we're probably still good. But when they start reevaluating in 2019, 2020, that time frame, we want to make sure that our numbers are below that 70 threshold, or whatever number they choose to drop it to. All right. So these are just some, and these were in the draft resolutions that were filed. It's pretty wordy, but it's just some actions that we'd like all of our members to take. This one's mostly focused on employee outreach.
All right, I have questions on this.
Yeah.
So if we join
Mhm.
and the coalition decides on certain things, are we tied to that?
No, so you would pick this for
What if we
yourself.
don't-
Yeah.
We don't implement any of the recommended commitments.
Mhm.
We don't meet any of them. What does that do to us?
No, there's nothing binding about this. So you would choose which ones. Yeah, you would choose in a resolution which ones work for y'all. So you're selecting the ones you want. This is completely voluntary. There's nothing binding, or you won't be kicked out of the coalition, anything like that. So these are just our suggested, recommended ones. Maybe y'all have something more specialized or less specialized that y'all want to implement. We just ask that y'all report it, which in the past has been, that's been the hardest part is, getting everyone committed. It's not too hard. Getting everyone to report on what they did is the hard part.
Josh already moved them to flexible work schedule with his 4x10s. Right? He's our first by 20%.
Put that in a whereas, Mayor. And then we can work from the lake as well, if that's what you would like for us to do.
There we go. We're getting
Might-
creative. We're
I
getting
would think
creative.
you probably need to put some solar panels up to provide shading and power
On the boat.
on the boat.
On the boat. Okay. There
Whatever
we go.
Wind-powered?
Mr. Cox wants us to do, Mayor, we are here to help the staff.
Excellent. Excellent.
Sun and water, we're on.
There we go. And then, so this is just more some different commitments that we've recommended. These are situational. We understand not everybody has a fleet. Not everybody operates large air emission sources. So it's not applicable to everyone, like generating engines and things like that.
I just wanted to make sure we didn't get.
No, so yeah, each jurisdiction will
we
make
didn't
their
get
own
restricted
commitments.
on what
Yeah.
what we can access because somebody else in that 5-county region,
Was naughty.
cause the region to go over and.
Oh, okay. So yeah. So it sounds like you're asking specifically about what if we went into non-attainment.
Yes.
Okay, so if we went into non-attainment, usually the EPA does it on a county level. So anybody within that county would be stuck under those rules. San Antonio, it's the Bexar County, which was a change from previous years. Usually they would choose the entire MSA. And that's the 6-county area around San Antonio. But they made an argument that since about 81% of the population in the San Antonio area, it lives within Bexar County, it should just be Bexar County. And they were successful in that. That's not the same picture here in the Austin region. We're a little bit more spread out. Travis County accounts for about 60% of the population, maybe 50 something, high 50s. Williamson County and Hayes County have a lot more population in there. So we don't know if that argument would work if it would just be Travis County.
Didn't matter
Yeah.
where Travis County.
Yeah, exactly. So they do it on a county level. If Travis County gets designated non-attainment, the rules would impact you.
What if we're not a member?
It would still impact you. Yeah, it would impact anyone. This is just a voluntary program. It's not, getting you in and out of federal compliance.
Okay.
Yeah.
No one gets away from EPA.
Yeah, no one would get away.
So if they put it on the county, everybody in the county gets
Correct.
the same restrictions. The biggest thing that I can imagine that this would affect would be things like money for highways,
Correct, yeah. Federal
infrastructure,
projects. Mhm.
those kind of things, grants, money coming from the federal government.
Correct. Biggest effects would be for federal projects and then for any kind of plant that needs to get an air quality permit.
Okay.
So if there's a facility that wants to expand or wants to, build, it would be much more difficult for them to do that within Travis County if it was designated non-attainment.
All right, as part of the planning with this, is one of the efforts of this trying to limit who comes into an area? Are you trying to look at what kind of footprint those people are going to make on your community and
we
try
don't
to set up kind of some kind of standard on what you want to come in?
Yeah, so we actually have, so we don't limit growth. We won't ever say that. But we do have this that we're adding into the program. It's a voluntary permit review program where if a new company wants to, or an existing company wants to expand significantly, which might put us on threat of exceeding the ozone standard or something like that, we'll work with them to make sure that they adopt some policies to make sure that they don't exceed or push us over exceeding the federal limits. We currently work with a few private industries, some of the larger point sources like Austin Energy, Texas Lehigh, and Austin White Lime. And they do things like when ozone is expected to go really high the next day, they'll turn off some of their combustion devices to make sure that they're not contributing to increasing that number higher. Because it's all a numbers game for us. They're only looking at the fourth highest day. So if we can make sure our fourth highest day is low, we can keep our ozone design value. That's the term they use for the number we're at. If we can keep that design value low, we're doing pretty good. So we work with private entities, look at their plant and say, hey, if it's predicted to be high, try to do some things to reduce the amount of pollution you're pushing. So that's what we mainly work with, and we're doing this new program so that if there is a large plant or like when Samsung expanded, we work with them to say, hey, if you know that that we're at risk tomorrow, let's try to reduce the amount of pollution that you're pumping out tomorrow.
Okay. If you become part of this, something does come up that we think we need help with. Does this give us any access to grants or anything to help control pollution from, say, a plant or other facilities that might be adding to the ozone problem?
So I wouldn't say it gives you access to any kind of grants that you wouldn't already have access to if you qualified. I mean, we do offer, or we have in the past offered grants when the funding is available from the state level. But what we do is that we would let you know when any kind of grants become available, and we provide the technical assistance to help you apply for that. Because a lot of entities are a little too small, or they don't have staff that has any kind of air quality expertise. So we'll help them apply for things like TURP grants, which is something that is given to help quicken vehicle turnover and things like that. So.
So I actually, alternatively, the two questions I had written about were, do you guys have any experience writing grants for alternative power sources, for city facilities, for CO2 conversion, like landscaping type work to help reduce?
So not so much CO2. Most of our work has been focused on ground level ozone, but we do have experience helping write the grant. We won't submit it for you or anything like that, but we do help out with
alternative power supply.
Yeah, alternative energy, things like that. And then we have in the past worked with the Landscaping Association to put together a toolkit of what green landscaping policies would look like. So we have done that in the past few years as well.
If I'm not mistaken, CapCog doesn't actually give grants.
No.
Yeah.
They're all passed through.
Yeah, we pass
So
through.
if they're out there and they know about it, they'll let us know, and then they will help us, kind of like the solid waste that I got, that was through TCEQ, but they're the ones that.
We paid the grant writer for the parks $36,000, right? So there's an intrinsic value if they have the assets to help us write grants for alternative power sources.
And they will. They help me with my solid waste.
Yeah, we really try to push everyone to apply for grants. It looks good on us if we have a lot of our cities applying for state level grants.
Chief always hates it when I say this, but he's got a roof that just really excites me about alternative power supplies up there on the police station.
All right, any other questions? And I'll speed through the rest of this. Some of the things that we are introducing in this next plan is agricultural outreach and assistance. And then this is a timeline that we're going through. We're pretty late in the process now. All that's left is getting CAC, which is Clean Air Coalition, approval of this new plan in November at our November 14th meeting. And I think that's it. Yeah, that's it. So if there's any other questions y'all had, let me know, or you can contact me later on.
So basically, all you're asking for right now is someone to meet with CapCog on the 14th of November and to start looking at resolutions that we might want to put in place to meet some of this.
Yeah, so what we're looking for is to get City of Lago Vista to adopt some resolutions, hopefully before the November 14th meeting. That meeting is when we're adopting the plan, or hoping that the coalition will adopt the plan. And we would hope that even if you don't have the resolution adopted, that we have some kind of level of commitment saying that we're looking at it, so that we can make sure that we include y'all in the plan. So
if the resolution is already in place, does that qualify for, or are you looking for us to write new resolutions to?
Here, hold on. The reason Anton is here tonight is because when he sent this to me, I wanted him to get involved in our process. He's presenting tonight. The resolution will be on the October 18th agenda.
Oh,
What I need to know is there like I had to felt, we're next on the 18th, we're also looking at reassigning our General Assembly member for CapCog.
Mhm.
Is that something that council has to vote and approve that member to represent coalition, or
don't think
can it be
so,
just
but-
somebody volunteer and?
yeah, I don't think so, but I can double check with that. I don't usually handle the council members that are representing our General Assembly. But I don't think you need a formal resolution for
I didn't see anything
that.
in the request to have that on the
Mhm.
agenda, just the resolution. And
Yeah.
I wanted to make sure.
Yeah, I'm pretty
November
sure you're
14th
good.
got
Yeah.
here, we didn't have anybody.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you're good, but I'll double check and get you an email back tomorrow just to make sure that everything's copacetic. But I'm pretty sure you don't have to have a formal something on the agenda saying that we're now designating this person to serve. But yeah, we did want something like a resolution or a signed letter saying these are the commitments that the city would make if you guys choose to join this coalition.
If I may.
Yes, sir.
How much time is spent gathering this data that has to be reported?
On our side or on what would be on your side?
What would be our
Yeah,
resource requirement to provide data to CAC?
So any kind of commitment you guys make, it would be, so it's kind of hard to say if you guys make a, commitment that we're just going to do outreach, like we're going to let people know when there's a Ozone Action Day, then you would just report to us, we did that. If you said something a little more detail orient, like we commit to providing vehicle data, just so we know how many vehicles your city operates and how often you're operating them, you would need a, person to go and do that. And so that would take a little bit more time. So it just depends on what commitments the city makes. But yeah, we typically do ask for things like, did you notify your city? Did you notify city employees? Did you notify your residents of an Ozone Action Day? And that's just a yes or a no. And then you could do things like the vehicle, fleet, and emission stuff. And that's the more time-consuming part, is if you don't have a person on staff that manages your fleet, selecting that person to do that.
So is this a measurement of city and city employees, or is it a measure of Lago Vista residents?
So we in the past, we've had things that would, we had asked the city to push to the residents, but we found that it's a little bit easier for the cities to manage their own employees. And so doing things like doing outreach to their own employees and then allowing CapCog to do the outreach to residents has worked a little bit better in the past couple of years. So that's kind of what we're focusing on, is having the cities and counties do things for their own employees. Things like allowing them to telework if air pollution is going to be poor the next day, or allowing flexible schedules so there's less cars on the road each day, things like that. We found that cities are a little bit better suited to do those kind of things for their own employees. So it's mainly this year, or this plan is mainly focused more on things you can do for your city employees. But we still do the outreach to residents in general. And we'll provide you guys with materials like each month I provide sample newsletters, sample graphics, sample social media posts and things like that you could put on your public facing medias. So things like social media, or if you have like water bills or anything, you could put a little note about air quality, once a year or something like that.
I noticed on your website you have an existing call for today and tomorrow on the ozone quality. Is that a plugin that's available to go to our city website?
Yes, so yeah, you can put that onto the website, and I can give you, or whoever needs to know that, the link to I'll get your contact information, and I'll make sure that you know where you get that. That's a free plugin that you can add onto a website.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So now that I know we're doing something on the 18th, do we know who we'd pin the roads on, Josh, if the council chose to do this? I mean, is that something that goes to the city engineer, or does that go to development services, or you, or who? Who would be responsible for the reporting?
Mayor, if the council makes this decision, then what we would do is we would go to our department heads, we'd have this discussion. If the chief doesn't volunteer, then we will, in all honesty, we would see who wants to be involved, similar to how Councilor Williams was stepping up for an item, and depend on how we make it happen. But whichever way, we would make sure that we have a staff liaison if there's going to be a council liaison.
Yeah, and we, in most cities and counties, don't have a dedicated air quality staff person. Only City of Austin and Travis County do. So we're used to working with a diverse group of staff level members. So we provide them all the information to teach them a little bit about air quality and things like that. So they know some of the terminology that we're using. So
do you know if like Hutto or Elgin or somebody like that of our size?
Yeah, so.
Do you know how many hours they spend preparing these reports?
I don't know how many hours they spend. I imagine not a ton. I would say mainly when it comes to reporting, it only happens once a year. So that's.
Oh, it's annual reporting.
Yes, annual reporting. Okay. So for a lot of them, we'll only see them when it comes time for an annual report, or if there's an action item on the coalition meeting, they'll want to know some information about that. But it's not a huge time suck.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions? We're good. All right. Thank you guys so much.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate you driving out.
Yeah, no problem. Nice to see you.
Make sure you watch for deer on your way out.
Yes.
They're everywhere.
Oh, yeah, I'll try. Okay.
Oh, Anton?
Comments on this here.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
I just want to make some comments.
Oh, okay.
With respect to this.
Sure, come on.
My name's Tom Monahan. I live at 21015 Twisting Trail.
Thank you.
And I'm here to provide some additional comment on what was just proposed with the CAC. For background, prior to my retirement in January 1st, 2016, the last 20 years of my working life with ExxonMobil, I was an expert in the Clean Air Act, and I did all kinds of things from compliance, developing compliance plans, permitting, issue advocacy with trade organizations and the various regulatory agencies that all have to deal with the Clean Air Act, including the EPA, TCEQ, Petroleum Association of Wyoming, and so forth. So my expertise is more with as a respect of the oil and gas industry, but there are certain commonalities that go in here. So my first comment is I personally am supportive of the city joining this coalition. It's a voluntary action, and it's a lot better to be doing voluntary things than to go non-attainment and have to have these things start being required. The way the NAAQS works, or National Ambient Air Quality Standards, is called NAAQS for short, but is just as, sorry, forget your name. As you said, we have these various monitors out within the area, and it only takes one monitor. It's not every monitor or the majority of monitors. It just takes one monitor to demonstrate an ozone problem. And if that 4-year average over 3 years exceeds the limitation, then the whole county at minimum will be designated. Likely, it'll be the whole MSA. Because what happens at designation is the state has to come up with a proposal, non-attainment proposal, which areas should be go non-attainment, and that gets submitted to the EPA, and then they have to approve it or not approve it. And if you look at Houston and the Dallas area, it's a several county area if it's non-attainment, and there's likely to be, more than just this county, I would suspect, if that was to ever happen. And plus, I don't expect the ozone standard to go any lower. It's a political football, to be honest with you. It's been lowered twice in the previous administration. The original was 84 parts per billion, I think. And then in 2008, it got reduced to 74. And then just before the outgoing administration, they lowered it again to 65. And there's about as many people that think of the health impacts question, the health benefits of the additional standards, but that's neither here nor there. But what's important is we don't want to be non-attainment because it does set in motion a lot of things that are very costly. These things are largely voluntary. If we join, you already can take credit for the 4-day work week. You can take credit for that, all right? With this data, he didn't talk about it, but I guess that would be a question. If I'm wrong, please correct me, but I'm thinking they'll take this data, these annual reports, they will look at it, they probably have developed, I don't know what type of technical help they have, but they'll probably have emission factors, you report something like, we sow X number of gallons of gasoline, and all that. They can, from those types of numbers, they estimate what those emissions would be. And do you submit that to TCEQ and they implement that in their modeling programs? Okay, and part of the SIP. Okay, so the TCEQ gets this data and they create these emission models. And keep in mind, emissions, the science around emissions and air quality is more of a practiced art than an exact science because it's impossible to measure all these emissions. So you do your best job at estimating, develop your baselines, and see what your trends are. And the actual numbers don't mean anything as much as the trends do. So. So 2 more points. I just wanted to make one. Having worked in this area for a long time, if you want, I'm available for any other discussions that anybody would want to have to understand this a little better, because I think it's an overwhelming topic, this stuff. In fact, there was times where we used to think there was more lawyers than engineers needed to figure out what all was in the Clean Air Act. We also, on our city attorney staff, I'll just let you know, Erin Silvera, who comes to the P&Z meetings and stuff, she worked at TCEQ for a number of years as their air quality attorney. And through my years with Exxon, I've met many times with Erin and Texoga talking about these types of issues with them and how it impacted oil and gas. So Erin's an expert in this stuff as well.
Score one for legal.
Yeah. Absolutely. So, with respect to your participation, now I read the letter I went through the packet yesterday, and maybe I misread something, but what was confusing to me in the letter is, and you reiterated again tonight, was they were asking you to be a general member, but it seems I read in the letter, there's also what's called a supporting member, right? So a general member, you have to assign a city council person to go to the meetings. A supporting member is a lower level. You don't get to be a member of the board, so you don't have to be at that level. My suggestion would be, it's all up to you to obviously decide. I think we should support at any level, just be supportive. But my suggestion would be that you start out at the supporting level, and at least the way I read the draft resolutions in your packet, there's one with the whole shopping list of things to do, and then there's one where it's kind of write your own list of things to do. You may want to consider that. And the reason I say that is because I think the time commitment will be huge for the city council person. And unless they double your salary, it will be pretty work intensive with all the other stuff that you have to do.
Our salary every week.
Yeah.
0 times
Go
0
ahead.
is 0.
Go ahead. So, I guess, I think we need to be considered part of the solution. I think that's important, to keep us out of non-attainment. But, and if we go non-attainment, then we're automatically part of the problem. So, and I also, as far as I know, there's no major sources, high emitting stationary sources in Lago Vista. All those emissions are basically mobile sources, the traffic in and out. There's very little that can be done regulatory standpoint because they're mobile sources. And so I think if we have I haven't looked at any monitoring data lately because I haven't looked at this stuff since I retired, to be honest with you. But so I don't know anything what the monitors say or what the modeling shows. So I could be wrong. But if I was going to give you my hypothesis of what I suspect is that if there is high ozone in Lago, it's not because of our emissions, it's because of the transport of the criteria pollutants, which are NOx and CO, or VOC, excuse me, into the area to cause that reaction. I would suspect TCEQ's modeling, if they're doing this, that'd be something to look into, is to see, what it is. And then, if you look at windrows, which shows what the wind directions are for over a 1 year period, we have primarily southerly to easterly winds, everything. So any pollutants here are more than likely carried out, most of the time, carried away from the county and outside the county. So while I personally, my hypothesis going into this, while I haven't looked at any hard data, is that we're not part of the problem at this point in time anyway. And, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't be participating, because the more they participate, the more, they can report the activities, and EPA looks favorably and all that kind of stuff with,
Tom, I've let you go past your 3 minutes.
Okay, I knew I was, but,
Can I sum it up by saying if you're not a part of the solution, you're a part of the problem?
Yes, that's one way to say it.
Okay.
Sorry, I didn't mean to get in that. I just sometimes I know too much.
We'll be in touch before the 18th.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Tom.
Mayor, going back to Councilor Smith's question, I would say that Mr. Monahan could be our staff representative if you decide to move forward.
You can pay him exactly what you pay the city council.
I'd take the chief away from that recommendation, and then I'll make it Mr. Monahan.
All right. Council have anything else? All right, we are going to move into action items. Anton, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And we're going to skip forward to number 5. Discussion and possible action of resolution number 18-1770, a resolution by the City Council of the City of Lago Vista, Texas, confirming the appointment of Kevin Madison as an associate municipal judge for the City of Lago Vista, Texas.
Mayor, if I may, this is the confirmation for associate municipal judge. As council is aware, we do have 3 current municipal judges. We have Judge Durbin is our presiding judge, Judge Spindler, and Judge Medlin. Retract the first statement, which I said we actually only have 2 judges now, because Judge Medlin has decided to leave our great city and great state and move to another state. So therefore, we're down to 2 judges. It's crazy how this works out. We actually made contact with Judge Madison. Actually, he made contact with us and said, hey, I'd like to volunteer my services to the community. I don't know if that's what made Judge Medlin decide to leave, but however it works out, we have been given another wonderful asset to add to our list. Just to give you a brief history of Judge Madison, and I reference him as Judge Madison because he has served as a municipal judge for over 25 years. He has recently served as a municipal judge in Lakeway. He's also served as a judicial instructor with Texas Municipal Courts Education Center for over 20 years. That seems to be enough. He has been a licensed attorney for over 30 years. I think he's 35, by the way, so he started very young at this. Age is not a factor. On some other personal comments on Judge Madison, he is a volunteer first responder firefighter, state licensed EMT with advanced life-saving skills. I think just that fact makes him credible for what we need here, just in case one of us gets sick instantaneously. And also in his spare time, he can serve as a fire engineer operator / engineer. So again, I think he has all the boxes checked. There are 37 other items, but I'm not going to read those. He may volunteer to be on the air quality board if we need that. I mean, he's sitting here, and we've got a good team going, so we have some things going. It is unfortunate that we would lose Judge Medlin because he's a fantastic person, but very exciting that Kevin Madison has volunteered his services to be an asset to not only to our municipal court system, but also a excellent source for our police department. I know Chief Smith will vouch for Judge Madison if you care to ask any other questions.
Thank you. Judge Madison, do you have anything you would care to say to the council?
Well, thank you for letting me be here. I did meet with the other judges.
If you-
Actually, we had a meeting.
Excuse me, Judge, if you would.
Yeah.
Speak to the microphone so people at home can hear you.
Had a meeting earlier this week. It turned into a 2.5-hour session. It was a good long meeting. So I had a good meeting with both the two judges that are, of course, here, your presiding judge and Judge Spindler, and we got along well. They're excited, I think, to have somebody else. We already have some duties divided up, and as I told the chief, as being an attorney, as a judge attorney, we can assist the police department. This is a big deal nowadays, getting evidentiary search warrants, and it's not just DWI, but of course, drugs have gone up, alcohol's gone down, and drugs have gone up for impaired driving. So they need the blood draws, and the sooner they get them, the better it is for prosecuting the cases, but also, just other things too. Sexual assault, getting into cell phones, GPS, all those devices where you need a judge to be able to issue an evidentiary search warrant. And I told them that I'd make myself available as much as I can. So I do get those calls at 2 a.m. I volunteered with Texas Game Wardens, DPS, Travis County SO, and LCRA. They got my number. I see troopers, I'm like, you got my cell number. And I'm like, what have I done? My cell number's all over there. But I do try and help them out, different agencies too, because they do get stuff out on the lake, and they need to find a magistrate. And good luck trying to find a district judge at 10 o'clock at night or 2 a.m. So I'll help out any way I can. Would love to be part of the community. My wife and I just moved here, and hightailed it out of the Austin area, and we love it out here. It's a great community out here, and the people are great. Got a great chief, great council, city manager. So love to be part of the team out here, and looking forward to working with everybody.
Super.
Does anybody have questions for? All right, well, I will entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve resolution number 18-1770, resolution by the City Council of the City of Lago Vista, Texas, confirming the appointment of Kevin Madison as Associate Municipal Judge for the City of Lago Vista, Texas.
I second it.
Who did that?
Either one.
I mean, got that?
I heard Williams.
Okay. Dave Williams.
See, Arch, you don't talk loud enough.
See, I heard Arch more, but he's
So
sitting closer.
I have a motion and I have a second. Is there any further discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Hearing none, the motion carries unanimous. Welcome aboard, Judge.
Welcome to the community, Judge Madison.
Right, we will now go back to number 4. Discussion and possible action of proposed funding and access agreement between the City of Lago Vista and the Rusty Allen Airport Property Owners Association.
Mayor, if I may, I can start on this topic. This is a continued discussion between the Rusty Allen Property Owners Association and the City of Lago Vista to create a funding, access, maintenance agreement, some kind of document that will prolong our relationship and create for a better airport. What we've done after the last council meeting, City Council said we are aware of items that we need to put into the document. Council instructed us to work together and to use the POA draft document, put these items into it. We referenced these items as the 5 FAA items. That's what we talked about them in the last meeting. Put those items into the document and then bring that back to council. Mayor, I believe you pointed out that we would bring it back at this meeting, October 4th, and that we would try and have a resolve by the October 18th meeting. So we did what council asked. Councilor Sullivan, myself, and James Peck, who's here tonight, we have met twice to talk about these agreements. What was in the council packet that was presented online was the first iteration of putting highlighted items into that document. So what we did is we took the items from the FAA documents, we put those into the POA drafted document, and we highlighted those, which is what you see there. What I gave you this evening was an updated copy with some of the items that we had in discussion with Mr. Peck that says the main items we changed out were wording changes of the changing out owner to city, changing out user to RAPOA so that there was some continuity and that we didn't have to talk about the owner or the user. And then there were a few other areas that we still have, I wouldn't say a point of contention, but a point of discussion that have to be addressed between us in this dialogue. In our meeting with Mr. Peck and Councilor Sullivan and myself, we had talked about meeting with FAA compliance officer Gary Loftus with a larger group so that we could talk about individual items that are included in those 5 items.
Does that happen?
We haven't made that happen. We had some disagreement on if we need to do that, if we should do that, if that's going to be effective. One of the concerns is, do we bring in Mr. Loftus to a document that is going to be used by us and reviewed by TxDOT Aviation? But at this point, it may be the only way to get some of our questions answered. So ultimately, what we're asking of council this evening, since we're not planning on a vote by council tonight, what we're asking of council indirectly, directly, is direction on how we should proceed with this document. Come the 18th, do you want to see us use the document that you've been provided and stick to those core items that we presented? Or do you want us to take I don't know how to phrase it, a less aggressive approach in implementing the 5 bullet points as presented or as recommended by FAA? I'm just looking from a policy direction, what kind of document is council going to approve or not approve is the question presented to you tonight.
So are you saying either work off of this or to come up with something new?
Mayor, no, we want to use this document. We've decided, the council actually said, let's use the basic document that the POA put together, which is, this is the format. However, everything that's in highlighted is what has been added after to the POA document. So the POA members didn't have anything to do originally with everything that's highlighted here.
Okay.
These are all things that I put into the document. There are some of these items that are highlighted still that, from our conversation with Mr. Peck, the POA doesn't have any concerns with. There are some, so you'll see potentially 17 highlighted areas in here that probably 13 of those, the POA is going to say, we're okay with. What we can do is go back and highlight those and then look at some of the areas. There are, for example, there's one area that the POA and the city does not agree with. That area would be that the city is requiring any tenant inside of a POA member's hangar to have a separate through the fence agreement. That's a city stance. The POA says we don't want to do that. So as a council, for that item, we would need to know, what do you want us to do?
So I'd like to take a step back for just a second, if I may. Has Dottie had an opportunity to review the document as it is right now?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
Dottie has not reviewed this document.
Okay, so that's, obviously, I don't like to do anything without legal. So that would be one thing I'd want to make sure before we had a vote on it on the 18th, that we had clearance from legal and felt like we were comfortable.
Yeah, that's a given.
That's a given. Which.
And it will happen, Mayor. What we have discussed some items with Dottie in terms of the document.
Yeah.
But I haven't handed this final document over to Dottie and said, give us a full blessing.
I've reviewed it, and I know that it's the 5 from the former document in here. So, and I'm waiting for clearance to review in more detail.
Yeah, you said there were 4 points where the POA and the city were not in agreement in the previous discussion. Is that accurate?
Paraphrased, yes, that's accurate.
Okay. Can you, aside from the through the fence agreements, what are the other points where they're not in agreement?
Mayor, great point, Mayor Pro Tem. One item is the through the fence for tenants. Another item is the actual maintenance fee, so the annual amount that would be included. Another item is the
Non-aeronautical, aeronautical businesses.
I was trying to tell you where that page is at. It's going to be
Well, if you will, Josh.
He has the floor right now.
page 4, Article 3, Section 1. That gets us back to, that's item number 3, and it's listed as no commercial aeronautical uses. So that's a big item that we have. And if you give me one more second, let me just pull that up before I give up my chance to speak here, Mayor. Hate to lose the opportunity to speak. That's tough.
Yeah.
Never get it back again.
Probably will.
Electronic page 65, F. User agrees to abide by the airport rules and regulations in effect. They have questions about that.
Maybe this just came to me from somewhere. Electronic page 65. But it's actually going to be on your handout. It's going to be page 7 of 8. It's going to be section F. And that's a simple statement that you see highlighted. Section F, RAA POA agrees to abide by the airport rules and regulations in effect as of the date of this agreement and may be amended from time to time. The RAA POA does not disagree to abide by the rules and regulations in its entirety. The question there is for what the RAA POA has requested is to abide while on airport property to abide by the rules and regs, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So instead of just saying in general, their property and the airport property, their recommendation is that while on airport property to abide by the rules and regs.
So I do have a question because maybe I misread it, but on section 1, non-commercial aeronautical uses, I read this, it's not saying that you can't run businesses up there, it's saying you can't do it without appropriate business licenses. Am I reading that correctly?
That is partially, yeah, that's partial, yes.
Okay.
And Mayor, that's the whole thing I've got there.
Okay. If I might, just to answer additionally your question, Suzanne, the FAA's main purpose is for airports like us to be self-sufficient. And so they don't want to provide a bunch of federal funds to airports like us and then have us fail. And so the whole idea is that by limiting competition, we'll be able to run businesses on airport grounds that will generate funds for us to maintain, operate, and enhance the airport. That's the reason why they try to limit the competition.
Well, I didn't really read it as limiting competition, and so that's where I'm not understanding, because to me, it just reads like, if you're running a business up there, that you need to have a business license.
And that's what this says, absolutely, and I think the intent is, if we're not running that business,
Yeah.
we're perfectly happy to license them and let them go at it. However, if we're going to get into that business, we have the right, as a federally obligated airport, to limit that competition so that we can make money that will support.
I'm never gonna support limiting competition.
And that's fine,
Yeah.
I'm just telling you, that's the federal law.
Yeah, okay.
It's part of the 2012
But I
Modernization and
didn't,
Reform Act.
it's not limited to any services. Yeah, again, I still don't read this as as any sort of decreasing in competition. I just read it that they're not going to be the permitting people, that the city takes ownership of permit licenses and permitting.
I'd be happy to provide you
Yeah.
with all kinds of additional information that will give you the background.
I just
on it.
don't feel like I'm not reading it right then, right? I feel like I'm not, something's not clicking. Because that's not how I read the words. Okay, I'll read it again before the 18th.
So,
All right.
so,
Go ahead.
So, Josh, I'm assuming that you could highlight most of this, and there's only 3 sections in here that we have to still deal with.
Mayor, Councilor, that is correct.
Is that correct?
The majority of the item can be unhighlighted now. Well, the only reason it stays highlighted is so that council can see how we added these sections back in, and then we would work backwards. Because at our last meeting, that's what the instruction was.
Right, yeah, I understand. But I also know that if all I have to deal with is 3 separate areas of this contract, that we gonna need to sit down, and if we need to stay up 48 hours, I don't care, we need to get an agreement, okay? You know, going back and forth 3 different times, and I've met with several of them. I don't understand why we can't come up with an agreement. Not that everything that I agree to, you're gonna like. I think you need to pay $35,000, okay? But I need to understand, and you need to understand, what that entails. And if it's not $35,000, then we need to come up with a number that we all agree to and make it work, okay? But going back and forth is not doing anything, okay? That's my comments. I also support that we need to have the 5 areas covered that are supposed to be covered, and how we word that, we'll have to figure that out, but we need to agree that whatever the law is, we'll follow the law. But we don't need to butt heads like we're butting heads.
Yeah. I agree, and, you know, like I said, obviously, to Councilman Williams's point, if the maintenance fee is something that needs to be negotiated, I would support that and give that direction. The through the fence rental agreements, I absolutely believe strongly we need to know who's renting what spaces up in people's hangars. That they need to have their own through the fence agreement. We need to understand what's going on on the properties up there. That's a business, and if you're renting properties, that is a business, and you need to have the appropriate licensing. That's not one I would be willing to budge. I'll read and do more research myself on the licensing for businesses. But I totally agree. This has been before us, 5 or 6 times over the last year?
Right.
We need to come to an agreement. These are all very intelligent people. We're all very intelligent people. We all love the community. We need to find a way through this.
Mr. Mayor, if I might, I just want to go back and address one of Suzanne's concerns. If you go back to the presentation that I made the last time, there was one slide in there that gave the 5 points of the law. And the point in question about the competition, whatever, the point actually states, maintain the property for residential, non-commercial use for the duration of the agreement, okay? So literally, it says you cannot use it for commercial aeronautical purposes. We've expanded it to say, we're okay to allow you to have them as long as you permit and as long as you're not competing with ones that we have. So if we were to go to the letter of the law, the statement would be no commercial businesses,
But
period.
the only commercial business we have up there is the aviation fleet, right? Fuel.
Absolutely. And at this point, that means we permit all others. However, the intent is, and part of the airport action plan, is to build a hangar, rent out space, potentially have an FBO and all those types of things. And when that happens, then we have the right and even the duty, according to the federal government, to limit competition so that we can be successful and not go belly up.
I absolutely disagree with you on that one. If we can't offer the service as a government entity for a rate that is competitive, then we should not be in the business. And I'm not willing to take businesses that have been in practice and in place in our community for 25 years just because we've decided to enter into it and create monopolies for the government. Now, fuel, I absolutely will support that because there are environmental aspects associated with fuel pumps that we need to keep tightly controlled. But conversely, I would also say that any and absolutely every business that's operating, including rental agreements of hangar space, needs to be licensed through the city. I mean, that's where I am on that. And I'm only here for 3 weeks, so you don't got to deal with me for too long.
Well, but I think it's a very healthy discussion to talk through this. I don't know that I disagree with you, but all I'm saying is that we're trying to follow the airport action plan that was developed by a committee that included a lot of people on the POA. And in that plan, it says, we'll do the things I just talked about. If they don't want us to do those things, we can alter the airport action plan to say we're not going to do those.
We should never get ourselves caught up in a visionary plan that prevents us from moving forward. Plans are just plans, right? This concept of 5-year, 20-year plans are ridiculous. Businesses are now operating under 18 and 3-year business plans. Right. We need to think about the short-term implications and the long-term implications. I totally agree with you in many ways around some of those pieces, but I'm not willing to create an artificial barrier on free commerce in this community where we are trying to build our economic standards.
Well, then what I would say is that what you're saying is you want to violate federal law.
If that is what federal law, well, you know what? I'm not big on a lot of federal laws, so.
That's part of the reason why we brought this up is to get input. Yeah. But I do want you to know the point of the law says no commercial businesses, okay? And we bent on that by saying, sure, you can have them, we just need to license them. But we also have to be careful if we move into aeronautical businesses on airport.
See, I would challenge that though. I would push back on that one because every small airport I have ever flown into across the country has had an on-site mechanic that's operated as an independent business person.
Well, and quite frankly, that's likely what we would do.
Yeah.
If we built a hangar, we wouldn't do it ourselves. We'd license, just like we're getting ready to license out the restaurant, the Highland Lakes Grill. We're not going to run that restaurant. We're licensing it to someone. No. Quite frankly, we would likely license it in our facility.
I highly suggest that we talk to, before the 18th, I would love it if somebody would call around to different airports around the country and come back. I can tell you right now at the Auburn Opelika Airport, which I fly into quite often. I know it's the middle of nowhere, but I know it. And they have 3 mechanics on site, none of which are leasing a contracted business out from that publicly owned airport. They are just the mechanics. One of them only does upholstery, right? So they have specific roles. They have created a market space, and maybe they're in violation of federal law too. I don't know, but one of the best mechanics in the country is at Prattville Airport. These are private entities and private businesses. I think we need to create an opportunity for private business up there.
I have a question. So we're looking at bending federal rules to allow certain businesses permitting things up there, right? And instead of going across the board, no commercial business. Okay, you're not a big fan of federal regulations, you say.
There's some of them
what I don't understand is we have an airport that by definition does not fit the FAA definition of their through the fence agreement. So we're going to bend the rules and not agree with the rules on something, but yet we're going to stick hard and fast to the through the fence agreement on an airport that doesn't even meet that definition, and then require them to ask the same for people leasing out of their out of their hangars?
Again,
I don't
still need to
understand
read
that.
that. I still need to read this because I don't read that the same way that Councilman Sullivan does. I need to read it 5 or 6 times.
And Mayor, just on my side to answer your question, by generally stating that the FAA or TxDOT does not recognize our airport as anything, I believe is an overgeneralization, and I got your point very clearly, but I just want to state our airport does fall under so many definitions of a general aviation airport, both by TxDOT and by the FAA. So we can't just boldly continue to say the simple statement that our airport is so different, we can do whatever we want. You're not saying that, Mayor, but it has been stated a number of times. The through the fence conversation does pertain to our airport. You can't say it doesn't, because if it only has one property that pertains to, it still does pertain to our airport. Right. So our airport it does fit. It may not be the standard by what all other general aviation airports are measured in the United States of America, but it does fit. And so I do agree with you that let's not pick and choose what we enforce. I say we enforce by what they said and make it happen. But as you were saying, why would we pick and choose? I agree. Let's not pick and choose. Let's just go straight by it, and it is what it is.
I don't think it is, though. I mean, let me read it out loud, because maybe it's just still not clicking. To me, it says that they cannot engage in any temporary or permanent commercial aeronautical activity on the land, ... without appropriate permits. That's not saying that they can't have the businesses. What it's saying is that they need to have a license through the city. I guess that's why I don't understand why there's disagreement.
A couple comments, if I might, Mayor.
Yes.
In talking with the FAA, they didn't state what you stated. They stated very clearly that we do meet the conditions of a through the fence airport, okay? So that's point number one. Point number two, Suzanne, we have modified the language because we've talked with Gary Loftus multiple times, and he's saying if you don't run those businesses, go ahead, allow them to.
Yeah.
It's not an issue. We recognize that's one of the points of the law, but if you don't, there's no harm in allowing them to. Mm-hmm. The problem that you run into is the competition issue and potential for an airport not to be able to sustain itself if it has competition, if it moves into those businesses. Again, if we decide we don't want to move into those businesses, we just continue to allow them to do them off-site, and we don't do them. I mean, I still think it makes sense for us to continue the plan to build a hangar and rent space out. That helps us generate additional revenue that we can use for the airport. But if we don't want to do a mechanic, don't want to do an FBO, we don't have to.
Yeah.
We absolutely don't have to.
Well, I think it makes economic sense. There's enough market for us to rent more hangar space, right?
Right.
There's market. I guess I'm not reading it. I don't understand why they're not happy with this statement, I guess, because I think this statement allows a lot of flexibility for businesses.
I agree.
Okay.
I agree.
All right. I'm gonna quit fighting about this until the 18th.
Well, I just, my direction is.
I've been quiet all night.
If we're gonna modify certain parts.
And may I ask?
Modify things, I think, it seems to me like the POA and the city could come to an area where we modify any area that needs to be modified so that it fits, instead of being hard and fast on everything or on some things and not other things. I don't know enough about through the fence. Personally, I just don't understand why that if that's a big sticking point, why that cannot be modified to fit our airport.
Mr. Mayor, I think that's the purpose. Josh and I sat down with James and walked through a bunch of this, and I think we came to an agreement on a good portion of it. We identified 4 areas that there's still sticking points. And our next step was for him, and I think he wanted to gather maybe 1 or 2 more of the POA members to get together with Josh and I, get Mr. Loftus on the phone and talk through these items and find out, where can we bend and where can we not. And so I think that's what we hope to accomplish between now and the 18th. I think tonight was mainly meant as we were told we needed to bring it back today, so we wanted to, and we wanted to give an update so everybody had an opportunity to find out the progress that we'd made in the last month or so, and what we hope to accomplish, what we hope to do in the next 2 weeks, so we're ready on the 18th. Is that a fair representation, James?
Very close.
Yeah, Mayor, I'm pretty good. And actually, with the comment from Mayor Pro Tem and from Councilor Williams, I've made my 2 notes. So you're getting to the intent. I don't know if I want the whole document because that's a little
I'll make
scary.
notes all over it.
But you're getting to the point of what I would have asked for, and actually what I told Mr. Peck in a text earlier today, saying the same thing. This was the goal, was to get more direction from council, actually from you as well, Mayor, to get more direction from council so that we bring it back. I do feel like with a meeting next week with Mr. Peck and anyone else, we'll be able to get closer to an agreement. I just tell you that I feel like the end agreement there, we may present a document on the 18th that has 2 points of contention that the 2 of us and everybody else, we just may not agree on. It may happen that there may be 1 or 2 items that we present, but that would be fantastic. We started out with 37 items that we didn't agree on, or 46. So, grand scheme of things, and it's not because James and I agree or disagree on these items. It's because there are other entities, which would be the city and members of the POA, which I think are 72 plus or minus, and that's James is not making that vote for them in its entirety. Anything we talk about then goes back to their group, and then as this goes back to the council. So I think
And something else I have a question on. I'll use this as an example. The solid waste grant that I got. It's a TCEQ grant. TEC is the one that provides the money. They're the overall, they're the money. It's ran by CapCog. I apply, I do everything to CapCog. Nothing goes to TCEQ. They just want something from CapCog that says, yeah, they did it. Okay? Seems to me, from what I've heard in previous discussions, this is kind of the same as the FAA and the TxDOT relationship. FAA is the big daddy, but they don't really care as long as TxDOT is administering, monitoring, and doing everything. And all TxDOT has to do is tell that FAA, hey, yes, we got a funding agreement, we've got this all kind of agreement. Lago Vista Airport is good to go. Rusty Island's great. Yes, and they get their 90-10 funding, they get their 50-50 funding. What if FAA is like the TCEQ, why do we need to go to Loftus? Why can't we just go to TxDOT?
Mayor, you're spot on. You're 100% correct. FAA, I believe Mr. Chappie pointed this out before in the phrase of we will satisfy a requirement and that will be sufficient if TxDOT sends the information over to FAA. It'll satisfy that requirement. The only time this will ever be an issue is when a complaint is filed and TxDOT says they'll come back to us, or if the complaint's filed with FAA, the FAA will come back to us and they'll come back to TxDOT. That's really the point when any of our documents are ever reviewed, is when it's passed up to the Supreme Court, i.e., as you quoted, the Big Daddy. It won't be at their desk at that point. I am a firm believer, Mayor, and I've said this before, that any document we submit, at this point, TxDOT's going to say, okay. I'm a firm believer, and if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. However, if it is questioned with a formal complaint and the FAA reviews it, I'm also a firm believer that there will be issues that will be brought back to us. We can just always hope and pray. No one complains. Life is good.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
2 points. TxDOT was the one that told us, Mr. Dave Fulton, the guy who's been there his whole life, he's the one that told us you got to have the 5 points of the law in your agreement. So TxDOT has told us we need to have that. With regard to talking with Mr. Loftus, we had Wade Troth. He was the compliance director for TxDOT. He's left, and they've not appointed a new one. So in order for us to talk to a compliance director, Gary's our best bet, to be honest with you, because TxDOT currently does not have one.
Those five points, I mean, obviously I don't know.
Well,
This,
Mr. Mayor?
the commercial use up here that we're talking about, that we've modified. If we can modify one, can we not modify all 5 to fit?
And I think that's the whole purpose for having the conversation with Gary. along with James and others is what latitude do we have on these other items that are of contention? And so I think the whole intent is, we'll have that conversation.
Dick?
I understand the law. I've actually gone through and read that whole thing. And I understand what it said. But anything that we do that stops people up at the airport from being able to earn a living, from being able to use their property the way they want to use it, to me is just totally wrong. Commercial enterprises are what this whole country's built on. If people want to rent their property, if somebody wants to set up a shop up there, somebody wants to run a business out of their hangar, to me, that is their right. And anything that we come up with in the document here that takes that away from them is, to me, just totally unacceptable. Now, I see no problem with the city requiring that there be a permit. That's reasonable. But something that says that we're not going to allow any commercial activity up there because it might interfere with us making a buck, that to me is just totally unacceptable.
So even if it violates the law.
If that's the law, that is a lousy law. I'm telling you.
I'm just asking the question.
Well, to me, if that's in this document, I can't vote for it.
Well, that's not how I read the document, Dave.
And I don't read this as saying that.
Yeah.
But if that's what the law says,
Then we've got a bit larger problem when we go to the polls in November, don't we?
yeah, and I can't vote for it if we're doing something that's going to take away people's right within the city to have a commercial interest and to make money. I just can't do it.
If that's a federal law, then each of us needs to get on the phone to our congressmen and our senators, because
Somebody.
that's not okay for a federal law.
Mr. Mayor?
David.
I mean, I'm looking at section 1, and it's just talking about licenses and permits. So, and then in the third sentence of this paragraph, it says, city may allow commercial leasing of use of property if the commercial tenant enters into the individual through the fence access agreements with the owner. All right, so that, they're saying they could have commercial operations up there. So why can't that one little line that says no commercial aeronautical use be just changed to commercial aeronautical license is required?
Yeah.
And then in that third paragraph where it says city may allow commercial leases to use of properties, but those properties that you lease with need to supply a license that they have, so we'll recognize what's in those.
Well, I think that's what that one line says, is that you can have tenants, they just have to have their own, the tenant has to have a through the fence agreement, a separate through the fence.
But I think they're dealing with the words no commercial aeronautical use, okay?
Hold on, I'll give the audience a chance to speak in a little bit.
It says no commercial aeronautical use without a permit. If you have a permit, that's what it says. If you get a permit from the city, we're not stopping you.
So why don't you just add those words to that sentence and?
It says, no commercial aeronautical uses. User shall not permit any person or entity to engage in any temporary or permanent commercial aeronautical activity on the land owned by the user described here above without appropriate permits issued by the owner.
And I understand that.
So it says they can do it, you just gotta have a permit.
So, but what they're wanting you to do is just have it in those 4 words. It's screwing them up. No commercial aeronautical use. Why don't you just add with a permit in that one line, and then they can read that same thing in the body.
I don't have a problem with that.
You know?
I mean, it says it in the body, but if it needs to be in the underlined section, that's not an issue.
One of the problems is how they, we don't all interpret things the same way. So if we don't interpret things the same way, we need to just have the wording so that everybody's thinking the same way. Now, if you can't, this is a 10-year agreement. If you all can't come up with an agreement, then cut it down to 2 years, cut it down to 3 years, and we'll deal with this another day. Okay? But in bottom line is, there needs to be an agreement. Okay? and all this going back and forth, you know, we need to do it according to the law, and we all need to agree that this is the law, okay? But if you can't get the words right with each other, then we got a problem, okay? So I'm speaking directly to you, you know?
We're ready.
You know.
We're ready. All of us are ready to jump up there and try to make this a dialogue, but we're sitting back right now.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, and David, on that third paragraph, this is, in my conversations with POA members, it's the through the fence. They don't necessarily have a problem with, you know, coming up with some kind of rental agreement. I mean, anybody that rents their house or anything, they usually have some kind of rental agreement between the person renting out the property and the person leasing the property.
Yes, but all I'm saying is
I don't think the problem is an agreement. It's that they feel like this doesn't fit the through the fence agreement as laid out by the FAA, and they don't want to force their people to enter into something that they don't even agree with in the first place for themselves. So that's where we've got to try and figure out how we can, if we can come up with something that qualifies as a through the fence access agreement, but doesn't necessarily have to follow what they say it has to follow.
Okay. Let me, if Chappie owns a hangar, and I decide I'm gonna be a tenant in Chappie's hangar, and I'm opening up a business in Chappie's hangar. All I'm saying is, as the people that's opening up a business in Chappie's hangar, I gotta come to the city and show my license for opening up a business. Now, I may have my agreement is with Chappie, but I still need to let the city know that I'm in that hangar. And I have no, if I have a license, I don't understand.
If we're ready to have some comment, I'm happy to make some.
All right. We'll look at this. I'm done.
All right. So, I've got some people that have signed up. Let's see. All right, so I have Carl Skiles. Is that right?
Here.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to yield my time to James, please. This is gonna take more than 3 minutes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, Glenn Chappie.
Okay. Either way, however you want to do it.
I haven't called you yet.
Right. Didn't know if his yield meant me to go.
No.
Thank
you, though.
Sure. Glenn Chappie, I'm a resident of the airport, 330 Flightline Road. Relative to what was discussed here, I appreciate everybody's input. That's great. The 5 things that come up. The POA as a whole, we don't really have a problem with the 5 things. There's some ways to implement a few of the 5 things that are important to us and we need to do. Councilman Bland, the way you interpret it is the way we interpret it as well. Nobody has a problem with coming up with some sort of agreement. We did some research with Josh. We didn't find an agreement for that. We can get there, okay? No selling fuel, easy. We'll bear the cost of infrastructure access, no problem. Not allow access through our properties, that's okay. Pay access fee as charged to others. The no aeronautical commercial uses is a problem. Right now, it's not a problem. The city's not in any business except selling 100 low lead, okay? Let's get past it. Okay, let's address it when it comes up next time. We're getting all caught up and worried about supporting the law. There's one agency that's going to approve this, and that's TxDOT. My motto here is don't make easy hard. Dadgummit, if anybody put a lot of hours in this thing, it's moi and a bunch of people back here. And this has been the most jacked up process. And I mean, you would agree from the time we did everything all along. And I got to tell you, we need an agreement and not a win. Okay, it's not about the POA winning, and it's not about one councilman winning, but one councilman has been a blocker. I'm sorry, Mr. Sullivan, you're driving us nuts. We don't trust you. Nobody at the airport does. I got to tell you right now, you have made it personal. You've even told me I should apologize to people.
Please.
Okay, I'll say.
Keep it on topic.
Let's focus on the real money issue, okay? The real money issue is the $150,000 we get every year from TxDOT, okay? If it comes down to the problem with whether it's $20,000 or $35,000, leave it blank. Let's agree on the agreement. Let's settle the number later, okay? Dave Fulton has talked to many of you. As TxDOT, you've heard his voice, the 5 things. Okay, we'll do the 5 things. So let's make sure we meet what the TxDOT wants. That's who's signing the check. It does cause me some concern about getting the FAA involved because you don't fit in his box. He's a bureaucrat, a federal bureaucrat, and doesn't fit, and we don't fit in his box, okay? The other problem on aeronautical historical businesses, I appreciate all the good comments supporting commercial businesses. And the net is this airport is zoned that way. The airport is in the airport action plan that we refer to so much that might need updating. We just did, but we might need to update it. It's zoned that way. You guys, the city, the zoning commission, the previous administrations have all been added that these businesses are not only allowed, but they're encouraged. To finalize, I would say James has done a great job of keeping things going. I'm getting to the point where it's like, this is just not any fun anymore. It's become very adversarial. And I got to tell you, right now, there's 71 properties at the airport. I can't tell you one that's liking what's going on at the city, not a one. We had a great relationship, everything's working great, and it's all jacked up. We need a round table. We'll bring the POA, and we'll bring the whole council, staff. Let's settle the thing. It'll take 2 hours, 3 minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, H.J. Wood, Jim Wood,
I'm gonna pass my time to
John Bush.
I'm gonna pass my time to James Beck.
You got a lot to speak on.
I don't know if I can fill up all that.
Well, you're last, so you're up. You've got 3 to 12.
Yes, sir. James Peck, 310 Flight
Suzanne
Line.
tells me you're done.
I sort of had a feeling after the last time that Councilman Sullivan and Mr. Ray and I met that if we didn't get through the items that we agreed to try to get through before this next meeting, that this could turn into a little bit of more dissemination of misinformation just by accident because the work wasn't done. We left that meeting with an intent to we created some red lines as a POA of the document that was highlighted that was in your initial packet. And I brought those to a meeting on 9/20. And we worked through them page by page, and there were 27 changes that got added to the document after the last council meeting where this was up, not just the 5 items that Dave Fulton brought up. So we worked as a POA to vet those items, narrow them back down. We came together, the 3 of us, and worked to try to have something that we could move forward with. And I think we did get there to the point that was made earlier with the exception of a few sticking points. The goal then was supposed to be for me to pass a digital copy of those edits to Mr. Ray, which I did. They were back on his desk for his next business day. Unfortunately, I think due to some schedules and some people out of town, those edits weren't able to be completely digested. And the paper document that's in front of you, I have not had a chance to review it all yet. So I don't know what did or did not make it into that one. To speak directly into the commercial uses, Ms. Bland, I know you were concerned with that and the wording was a little unusual there. It is because one of those 5 items is a strict prohibition on commercial uses. The problem with that portion for us is that in the law, Part 136 that Councilman Sullivan's referring to regularly, that speaks specifically to a residential through the fence agreement. There are other types of through the fence agreements that aren't addressed in Part 136 or other type of arrangements because as the FAA says and as TxDOT says, they almost have a saying, if you've seen one airport, you've seen one airport. So when you look at Part 136 and there's a prohibition on those uses, the FAA has had to speak into allowing commercial businesses, and then there have also been some private interest groups that have had to go do a lot of research involving attorneys, and people have spent probably hundreds of thousands of dollars to work through problems and disagreements like the ones that we've been in for far too long here. There's a company called the Airport Cooperative Research Program who's come up with their own 158-page interpretation of Part 136 to be able to fit airports like ours into something like this. Directly in that portion, it says activities commonly associated with through-the-fence operations include residential, commercial aeronautical, non-commercial aeronautical, non-aeronautical, and governmental military uses. And each of these are defined and discussed in this guidebook. So we have not just an opinion from our POA, but literature from this document and many others to back up why the commercial uses can fit without busting the grant assurance problems. The other documentation that during my meeting on 9/20 with Mr. Ray and Mr. Sullivan was put in front of them, I brought with me today. I don't have a copy for you, unfortunately, but I'd be happy to send it out to anybody. This is a memorandum directly from the FAA in 2013, speaking directly into Part 136 about grant assurances, and this is about the portion with tenant aircraft. This says a sponsor of a general aviation airport shall not be considered to be in violation of this subtitle or to be in violation of a grant assurance made under this section or any other provisions of the law as a condition for the receipt of federal financial assistance for airport development solely because the sponsor enters into an agreement or grants a person that owns residential real property adjacent to or near the airport access to the airfield for one of the following: aircraft of the person or aircraft authorized by the person. That means that if we own that private property, that we are allowed to take our own aircraft from that to the airport, and aircraft that we authorize can also make that transition as well and not jeopardize the funding at all. So I think we can scratch that one off the list. It's not a concern. The FAA had to address it after the law was put into effect. The law has had to be considered, manipulated, adapted, broken down, looked at individually, and there have been plenty of case studies to show where that happens. So it was our goal to try to work through those two things. Unfortunately, we didn't come to this being enough information for Mr. Ray or Mr. Sullivan to feel confident to move forward with it, which I do understand to a degree. The goal then was to, after we had vetted the document in our meeting, to come up with a cleaner document that only had the 2 to 4 sticking points and be able to figure out how to strategize a conversation with Gary Loftus or other pertinent personnel. The POA's opinion is that Gary Loftus is an FAA individual, and as the mayor spoke into, our funding doesn't come directly from FAA, it's a TxDOT situation. We'd rather have that conversation with Dave Fulton or someone Dave Fulton authorized. Reason for that is they're the ones in direct control of our funding. Taking it to as high of a level as the FAA, we feel that they might defer back to a form letter, which could jeopardize the funding for the entire airport, which isn't anybody's goal. The POA wants to see the city succeed with any interests that the city has at the airport. I believe that the majority of council wants to see any private parties at the airport succeed in anything that they want to do as well. Speaking directly to Gary Loftus without a very well-vetted plan beforehand could result in putting things in jeopardy or shining a light on something that's pretty complicated. And if we hadn't done our research first, it could be a messier conversation than Councilman Sullivan could be prepared for or I could be prepared for. The organizations out there that can help us with this sort of thing are the AOPA, it's the Airplane Owners and Pilots Association. Aside from that, the document that I referenced, the Airport Cooperative Research Program, there are people there who can help us with this sort of thing as well. I think it would be a little bit wiser to pursue those avenues first, because even though we're a unique airport, there are 158 total in the entire country that have some type of through-the-fence agreement, whether that's residential, commercial, et cetera. Out of those 158, there are fewer than 10. Best I've found so far to date are 4 that have an arrangement like ours, where we had an airport that was owned by the property owners around it that was then conveyed to a city entity where deeded access from those properties to the airstrip itself remained intact. So it's a unique situation among unique situations, but I think that these organizations that have helped people work through that before probably have a lot better insight than someone who's fairly far up the bureaucratic food chain at the FAA, so to speak, to be able to weigh into that, just to make sure we have all the ammunition we need beforehand. The problem that we've come into in trying to reach an agreement here, and the reason that we're all probably getting a little weary of hearing about all this at this point, is that all the conversations and negotiations that I've tried to attempt to have with Councilman Sullivan have been very black and white. And all of this where we have sticking points are very much gray area issues that other people have been in before, but he hasn't been willing to listen to them in the sense that it's the law, we must follow the letter of the law. We don't want to do anything illegal here. We want to make sure the law applies. There are different interpretations and adaptations because this isn't a typical law. It's basically something that was put out to say if you're starting from scratch, you're just now getting into the airport business as a city, and you're going to develop these things in the future, here's what you have to do, but we understand that there are things that have existed far before we spoke into this, and that's why you've come up with things like 16-page memorandums, 158-page opinion pieces on this. Unfortunately, Councilman Sullivan hasn't been willing to consider those items the entire time. It's unfortunate that we haven't worked as a team from the start. It's frankly a little frustrating and embarrassing that any of this had to come up to the council level without having an agreement already at the Airport Advisory Board level, and that we couldn't have had more substantive conversations at that Airport Advisory Board level to go into it. The problem that the Airport Advisory Board ran into is if they had any objection to any of the things that Councilman Sullivan was saying about the law, they reached an impasse and didn't have as much tenacity to dig in and find the details as maybe I or some of the other POA members have along the way to be able to keep this thing rolling forward.
So can we keep it on, let's move it forward instead of who's to blame for what?
I really think so. Yeah, I don't think we have to go down that road. I think Mr. Chappie had a really good suggestion. We have a lot of ammunition that would have streamlined the prior conversation that all of you had to have tonight, that could have nipped that in the bud and taken it down to just a couple of seconds rather than 10 minutes worth. And if we get into a roundtable type discussion where you don't have to suppose a number of things, where we could hand you documentation that shows you how to make this easy, we could probably get it solved in a couple of hours without any trouble. I don't know when or where that happens, but I'm happy to be there whenever it is and whoever needs to be there and be involved. So I think that's probably it.
And you did 9 minutes.
Was it 9?
It was 9.
That's not bad.
James.
Thank you very
All
much.
right, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, can I make one comment?
He has that copy.
Yes, Kevin.
I'm very happy that James got up and spoke, and I think he had a lot of great things to say. I agree with a ton of them. I would disagree with the black and white comment. I mean, he made it personal, and so I do want to address it. You can take a look at the no commercial aeronautical businesses as a perfect example. We did not implement that directly as it was in the law. We put very clearly in there that you can have them as long as you get permitted by the city. So that's an obvious gray example of gray. And I guess another point that I would make is that I didn't tell or dictate or anything to the AAB. I mean, you saw how we went through the rules and procedures and how we're supposed to act, and I think Josh can vouch for the fact that I don't open my mouth unless they ask me a question or I've got an agenda item for them to put on a future agenda. What I have done is I've passed along to them information that I've found that helped inform me about how we might need to go about doing this. And I guess it was unfortunate that they wouldn't even discuss it in their meetings. And so, anyway, those are the only 2 points I'll make and be done with it.
If I may have one more comment on that comment. They felt that.
Come up so the audience can hear you.
My understanding from the Airport Advisory Board on that is that they felt that your comments were so far off base that they couldn't consider them at that point. Basically, they were shut down when any of that happened. And if they presented something that you did not personally agree with, you were willing to carry forward your own interpretation rather than just the interpretation of the Airport Advisory Board. So it would be our wish as a POA that anytime anything like that happens, that you wouldn't work on your own, but rather that we could come to an arrangement between the POA members that are on the Airport Advisory Board.
All right,
and you.
Jeff. James, I'm sorry.
Don't change the name.
Thank you.
Mayor,
No big guy.
I guess then I go back to the initial question, and I personally, I think that, I know there have been a couple comments, it's a negative discussion. I really enjoy the discussion. I think this is what we're here to do, is to really vet this issue, and I think it is a serious discussion. So,
As long as we're on the issue.
right, and I agree 100%. I don't care about the blame 1%. I suck as a person, but as this entity, I think we can get this to an end. My question is, Mayor, does the council want us to sit as a round table as a whole group with the members of the POA, or do you want us to discuss, I mean, Mayor, if you asked me to step out and you want to put Star or Sandra or Chief into that position, I ask, what does the council want to see us move forward, how we want to get to that point? I still think we're right in line with the October 18th, and I don't care to battle points of contention. I gave you my honest opinion that we will get to a document for you on the 18th that will have 1 or 2 items that are still unresolved. You just tell me what you want me to do and we'll make it happen.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to see it more of a round table so that it doesn't become an adversarial thing and we can work through it. And whether it's 3 people or 4 people of council sitting down and just hammer it out.
And Mayor, I'd be, if the council decided that it's staff and 2, 3 council members, great. I like most of you, so. I think we can get to it. The thing is, on our side, if we want it to be more productive moving forward on the vote, I think it's the same thing Mr. Peck said. If he has a couple extra people there then those people may be voting members, just like if we have extra voting members, then at least we could come to an agreement between 3 voting members from the POA and 3 voting members from the council.
Right.
And then he's only got, well, 1, if they have 4 executive committees, and then we have 4 here that could still mess everything up. But at this point, it's still good government work to me.
Mr. Mayor, I can't commit to being a part of those with my current schedule, as we know, but I would suggest that at this point, it feels like there's a lot of personal stuff around this, and maybe having some additional folks involved that don't have some personal stuff around it on both sides, that might help. I don't know.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to recommend that we establish a subcommittee of 3 people to meet in a roundtable with the POA to work these things out, because I agree. I think these are all things that we can work out. I think these are all things that reasonable people can sit down and get it done. And I personally would be willing to volunteer to be one of those individuals. And would like to see us get this done as quickly as possible.
Got 2 weeks.
Is that a motion?
Mayor, so you asking for a motion?
You know, you're not really posted for action on the subcommittee, but I think that you can discuss and reach some kind of consensus on who would volunteer to serve.
Does the subcommittee have to be created by motion?
No.
No.
Just 3 people that are willing to meet and work on this and bring it back.
I'll volunteer.
That's 3.
I'll be the 3rd one.
Okay.
Mayor, just point of fairness, if those 3 are the subcommittee, then at that point, I don't know if it's fair, then we would have to eliminate James Peck,
Yeah.
Glenn Chappie.
7 on there.
I understand where you're at. I just don't think we can remove,
Yeah.
well, if Kevin's not on there, then the person on the other side wouldn't be able to be on there. And
I think you need to keep Kevin because he's got the
Well,
context in the subcommittee.
That was my only point, Mayor. You can do what you want to do.
on that subcommittee?
I will leave it completely up to y'all.
Just my point.
Completely up to y'all.
I'd like to see Kevin be on it.
Yeah, he's got the context and research.
Well, then I can withdraw my name.
Well, let me ask you a question. Why can't you just have 4 people in?
Because then you've got a quorum.
It's quorum.
Well,
you're
you
a
just have
voting
to
body.
you would just have to post it 72 hours in advance. You can have 4 on there, but you would post it.
We'd have to meet in a public space and,
Allow members of the public.
Okay.
yeah.
What?
Post it?
That wouldn't be bad.
That's fine with me.
I mean, I'm pretty confident, Mayor, if we do that, we could probably, assuming here, and when I'm looking at James, I'm confident we could text to figure out the date and then set something so that it's far enough in advance of next week to get it posted, and then get us a meeting with 5, whatever we need for a Royal Rumble.
Well, I'm gonna tell you, we're gonna have one shot at it. If we're planning to do this by the 18th, we got one shot. Because next week,
Oh, we all
half
go
your
to
council
GML.
is in Fort Worth. So nothing will be, council can't do anything next week.
It can't, it would have to be done
Monday or
the
Tuesday
So you're
15th
looking
or
at
the
the 15th,
16th
16th, or
or
17th.
17th, okay?
Well, we've done put it out 2 weeks. We got plenty of time to make that happen then.
Yeah,
We can
we're-
advertise it twice.
I'll work the 16th, so we're down to the 15th and the 17th.
Let's do it the 15th.
I'm teaching the whole week, so I'm out.
Teaching.
Yeah.
Okay, Mayor, so I'm going to follow up with Mr. Peck, looking at the 15th and the 17th for our 2 subcommittees to meet.
Yes.
And, okay, we'll get that to you. We'll get it advertised. We'll figure it out
Thank you.
and get it done.
I would recommend,
You want a legal opinion on some of this stuff, make sure dot i's cross t's, you want legal there?
I'll talk to Dottie after and see.
You know, it'd be perfectly fine to have Dottie there.
I would just recommend that you
post it as a work session, a council work session.
That was the plan.
Because you
Yeah.
really haven't created a subcommittee, and so
Okay.
that's the better
That's I'm
format.
fine with that.
We'll get it handled, Mayor. And after it's approved, Mayor, we still want to keep this item on the agenda for future, just so we can make sure we're still talking about it. 'Cause
This is the new golf.
Mr. Mayor, I would request that our city manager get us a copy of the items that are the sticking points so that we can just focus on those instead of looking at all this yellow. Okay?
It's exciting though.
Okay, thank you. All right, are we ready for 6?
No, excuse me, one more to speak? I was on the list.
Oh, did I not? I'm sorry. Where's my papers? What do I do with all my papers? Well, come on up.
Okay. Yeah, it won't even take 3 minutes.
What, state your name and address.
Rick Fulton, 9412 Rolling Hills Trail.
I'm sorry, I did have yours, I'm sorry.
There we are. My concern is over the through the fence agreement or access agreement. When I hear through the fence, I hear access fees. I don't know if you're aware of this, but I paid, me and several others on the northeast side of the airport, paid 100% for the taxiway. No assistance from the Rusty Allen POA, no assistance from the city, no assistance from TxDOT, no assistance from the FAA. 100% out of my pocket, built the entire taxiway from my entire land frontage. I'm not aware of any federal air regulation that requires a through the fence agreement. That's completely new to me. I may be missing that. That wasn't my area of aviation, airports, but I've never heard of such a thing. And when I purchased my property, I believe I had deeded access to the Lago Vista City Airport. I don't need to make an agreement with the city to access the airport. I have deeded access. So therefore, I don't think a through the fence agreement is necessary. I don't think it's desirable, and I don't even think it's enforceable. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, is there anybody that I didn't have a piece of paper for that would like to speak quickly? All right, we're going to go to number 6.
You want 1 minute? I can do 1 minute.
All right.
Put the last nail in the coffin. So I'm Don Barthlow, 9411 Rolling Hills Trail. My main point here is I've watched the way the city operates, and I've been going to more and more of the other board meetings. I feel like we have boards for a reason, and you need experts on those boards. I know very little about golf, but I think it's a very important part of our community. So I want some experts to weigh in on their opinions on that. Airport Advisory Board? None of you guys are pilots, right? Maybe one of you? You need some guidance when you're dealing with a complicated airport. So the Airport Advisory Board is an important part of that. And it needs to have strong members on the board and a strong chairperson and a strong liaison. So that being said, if you don't want to hear all this every time, then you want to put strong boards in place for the building committee and every other board you have in town. Ours is not working right now. That's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay. All right, number 6. Discussion and possible action with an agreement for the operation of the Lago Vista Golf Course Restaurant with Habanero Grill.
Mayor, I'm listed on this action item, and I've prepared a staff summary that hopefully you can go over those points, because I have given Sandra and Dottie the form that just shows a potential conflict of interest with the item. So as Councilor Smith had done before, I'm going to recuse myself from the full discussion. You do have the Star and you have Dottie here, so I'll just step aside from that discussion.
And I did want council to note on the record that City Manager Ray has filed that conflict of interest affidavit under Chapter 171 of the Texas Local Government Code. There is a question as far as whether that is actually necessary. There's a pending Attorney General opinion to the Texas Attorney General to weigh in on whether that's required for a city manager. So he is doing it in the interest of full disclosure to the council.
Got it.
All right, so executive summary. The city put out an RFP to find an operator for the Lago Vista Golf Course Restaurant. City received 6 proposals in response to the RFP. 5 of those proposals were for operating the restaurant, and 1 of the proposals was for someone to manage the restaurant for the city. The city put together a selection committee of 3 individuals to review the 6 proposals and make a recommendation to the city manager. City manager was not included in the committee and was not involved in the scoring or discussion. The committee selected Habanero Grill as the top choice. Habanero Grill is a New Mexico-owned business that is owned by Nick and Lisa Higgins. Nick and Lisa are the parents of Josh Ray's wife, Savannah Ray. They own 3 different restaurant locations in San Juan County, New Mexico. They plan to move to Texas to operate this facility full-time. Currently, they have a manager operating the 3 facilities in New Mexico. The city finance director negotiated the attached contract with Habanero Grill. The agreement calls for a fixed monthly lease payment by the Habanero Grill to the city in the amount of $2,850. This results in an annual payment of $34,200. And says this was previously discussed by council and staff. All right, so questions from council members?
I have a question for Star.
All right.
Star, when I look at this contract, this is a 1-year contract, is that correct?
The initial term is 1 year.
The initial term is 1 year, so do we have any obligation to keep the rent at the same rate in the following year?
No.
Okay, that's good. And I think that might be, and we did discuss that you would be managing the relationship with this contractor potentially, so that we could keep conflicts of interest out of play. Are you comfortable with that? Is that within your comfort zone?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
And especially anything to do with finance. If it has to do with the golf course premises, it's going to be Chris.
Right.
And there, so it's, we're going to pass it around as however it's needed, and there's no problem.
Perfect. Okay, just wanted to make sure that you were all good with that.
So a little more on your topic there. I had 3 questions that were presented to me that I investigated. One of them was the contract. So it says here, if you'll read down here under 2, term is, so it's a 1-year contract, then it can be extended for 2, basically.
Mhm.
It says if the term is extended, the parties may consider increasing the amount of compensation by the CPI. Basically what it says, at the end of 1 year, either party can negotiate the price. Second one was,
But it won't go below the 2850. It will either go in the up direction, but not the down direction.
They could ask, but we could say no.
Correct.
the second one was a liquor liability. That is covered.
Sale of alcoholic beverages?
I think it's under the insurance.
Oh, okay.
Including occupancy, all claims and losses arising out of the operations of the company, including occupancy of the premise, sale, gift, serving, handling, or dispensing of any product. So they will be required to do the insurance on the liability. And the other one had to do with default and what happens to any properties that was, if they defaulted. And I'm not sure exactly where that was in here, but it's in here as well. So this contract did cover all the 3 topics that I had questions about.
Mr. Mayor, can I just ask Dottie a
Yes.
question? So they don't need to have just a specific liquor, alcohol liability insurance. It's all covered under,
It's covered under their general
okay.
liability.
Just wanted to make sure.
Mayor, when you get a chance.
Yes, sir. You're up.
This one I'd like directed to Dottie, if possible. First of all, I have nothing against the family that was chosen by the committee, but I am concerned that we have people in this community that will take this to social media. And I don't want this family to go through what my family went through on social media for the last 3 years. So Dottie, the question is, can you assure us, those of us here, and those of us at home, that there's no conflict of interest with this contract or with the relationship with the city?
There's no financial interest that your city manager has in this contract. It's only through his relationship that there is a conflict of interest. Under the state law, filing the conflict of interest affidavit is the disclosure that's required. Under your ethics ordinance does talk about having direct and indirect interests, but because your city manager has no financial interest, I don't believe that that applies either. So I have looked at your state law on conflicts of interest and also the ethics ordinance, and I don't believe that your city manager has an interest in this contract.
I just want to be sure, and I want to have it on the record, because this was a problem for me and another council member up here in times past, and I don't want to see a repeat. Okay, so that's the reason for asking the question. Okay, you answered it. Thank you.
I didn't know. I was going to, Sandra, were you able to capture that for the recording? Okay. We'll figure it out.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I had two things I was going to ask about. One was on section number 5. At the very end of that first paragraph, it says such facilities by either city or company unless agreed to in writing by company and the city manager. And I thought the whole idea was that we were going to kind of remove Josh from interactions with this. Should that say somebody besides the city manager?
That's correct, and I
Yes.
think that we've cleared that up. That's going to be the finance director or the golf course manager.
Okay. And then my other one was on section 8, the exclusive concession rights. I think the whole idea is that they will be the only one that have the opportunity to provide services at that facility. I know we have events, golf tournaments, for example, like the Lions, and I believe they come and do their own barbecue and so forth. Has that type of situation been allowed for? And how are we going to handle it when we have a situation like that?
Could I speak to that?
Whoever can answer.
What the Lions have always done is to do all of their activities outside of the restaurant. So that does not interfere with whoever has the contract for the restaurant. They bring their own facilities, they bring their own equipment. They don't use anything that's inside the building. So by staying outside of it, they're outside of what has gone on in the past. I know that's the way that they've gotten by with the Lions doing their event outside.
And the only question I'd have is I believe at some point there's a definition for what properties they have access to and domain over, and we just want to make sure that back patio is not covered, that it's left open, if that's the way we're going to handle those types of things.
When I looked at how the other users use the golf course, they make an application for a special event permit. So we can clarify that their exclusive concession rights does not include, or the people that hold the special events permit on the golf course are also, allowed to use it. So we'll have to figure out the wording, but that's the concept is, as long as you have a approved applicant doing a special event at the golf course, that's not going to be excluded by this paragraph.
Okay.
So I'm not sure, Kevin, because it also says exclusive right to use the concession facilities. So if they're bringing their own facilities I don't know. I guess we could argue, but I, to your point, we want to be good to the tenants and be clear.
Yeah, exactly. They need to know what they can expect, that there can be events like that outside vendors can come and prepare their own food and serve it. And what are the conditions in which they can do that?
Yeah.
They have to remain on the back patio, for example. They have to bring their own equipment. I think we should be very clear about that.
Okay.
But I wouldn't spell it out that the back patio is open to the general public for
Yeah.
them to do that.
No.
I think it should just be clear that when you apply for your permit to do it, that the tenants are informed, because there's only a few of them. There's only the Lions Club and maybe the Chamber. But other than that, there's no one else to do it.
Right.
So, and for people to understand that if they apply for that permit, it may be turned down.
Sure.
Okay.
Well,
Because
generally, those happen in conjunction with holding a golf tournament at
Right,
the
right.
golf course. You don't just come and say, I want to rent out the back patio.
Right, correct.
And so it's a package deal. I just want to make sure we're clear on it so that not only does Habanero Grill know what parameters they have to operate within, but anybody who comes and wants to apply for something like that, they know what they have to do.
Got it.
And that would be spelled out in the special event permit. And then the provision in here, the grill would know that that is excluded from the
Right.
exclusive rights.
Okay.
I have a question, Dottie. This is kind of a general question. Has it more to do with number 16, which is compliance with local, state, and federal rules and regulations? I don't see anything in here that says anything about them posting permits and those kinds of things. Is that a requirement or not? Like the health certificates that are
Right, I
issued?
think that's a state requirement.
That's a state
But I mean,
requirement. It doesn't need to be.
It doesn't have to be in here?
No.
Correct.
Okay.
Any restaurant that opens up has to do that.
I understand. I just wondered if it had to be in this document, and if it doesn't, it doesn't.
Well, it does say that they will comply with all state, local laws, and that is a state law. So,
Understood.
Are we at the point where we can make a motion, or, I don't know?
I was about to ask.
Oh,
I've got
Um,
notes if you want to know what we changed.
I believe there's a representative of the restaurant here, if anybody has questions for him.
oh, really?
No? Okay. I am mistaken.
I don't see anyone from the restaurant.
Okay.
The only thing, there was a couple of different versions of this agreement going around, and I had made some changes, and staff had made some changes. One of the things was in the term, and so I was working with Star and suggested maybe utilities increase 20%. That was a measurement. But then there was another standard you could use if the utilities increased dramatically. So I don't know which one the council would prefer. The 20% increase in utilities, or if the utilities increase dramatically. This is all something that's going to be negotiated for the next couple of years anyway. But
I don't know what dramatically means.
It'd be nice to have it specific.
so you want to stick with the 20, if the utilities increase 20%, that's the measurement that you'll look at, adding something to the compensation to adjust that.
Well, then you probably will want to define, is it across all four of the utilities, or if any one utility increases by 20%? What happens if PEC jacks up our rates and all of a sudden it's 50% more, but the water, wastewater, and the other remain the same, and the average turns out to be 18%? What happens?
I think we looked at it as the aggregate, all four of them added together, 20% increase.
When is the baseline?
So
set?
we were not going to look at that until the negotiations
Until
anyway.
the first year, to the end of the first year?
End of the first year. Because
Okay.
they felt the compensation was high enough.
One of the things that makes that part of it hard is because we don't have anything separately metered. So when it's doing electricity, you've got the clubhouse, you've got upstairs, downstairs, cart barn, everything, same with the water, sewer. So we're trying to keep it as vague as possible in order to accommodate all of that from our perspective.
Right.
Star?
Good point.
I do have one question for you. When American Girl Grill was in, I thought I'd heard that the amount they paid on a monthly basis was $500. Is that, do I have that right?
It was $400 the first year,
Okay,
and then it was $500 the second year.
okay. And they had trouble making those payments, if I remember.
That is correct.
I just want to warn everybody, this is 5 times that. And
this is not a problem.
I'm just, I want to be like Ron. I want to be on record. I want to make the statement. We've seen what happened in the history. Let's just be aware of it. That's all I'm saying.
In talking to the owners, one of the things I discussed with them is that council, through the budgeting process, we had wanted to make $34,000 on the restaurant side.
Right.
We could do that several ways. The bids came in with different ways that they would compensate the city. Some of them was a flat rent, some of them was percentage of food sales, alcohol sales. One was only if they had net positive revenue, would they be able to pay the city. So we looked at all of those, and then in discussing with the owners of the grill, the Habanero Grill, I told them we can make it as simple or as hard as they wanted. Our goal was to make at least $34,000 because that's what we had budgeted for it.
Sure.
So that would have been $28.33 a month. They countered and said we will pay $28.50. They threw the number out there. They have 3 restaurants that are already successful in New Mexico, have enough capital at least, fund themselves for a while. This guaranteed the income that we needed for the first year.
Okay.
So anything that we had done and based on a percentage of the utilities, which are unknown at this point, food, anything else would have just been a guess. So this at least gave us that guaranteed income.
So Star, if we don't have a separate meter for the restaurant, do we have a separate meter for electricity? Or is it a common meter also?
There are common meters. There may be more than one meter in that takes care of, I wish Chris was here on this one, but there may be more than one meter there, but they're for big expanses. I mean, it's covering the pro shop, cart barn, just different areas of the building, so we can't specifically call out what would be restaurant space as opposed to some of the other areas.
Maybe not this year, but maybe in some future year, we might want to split it out just so that, it may work to their advantage. Because they're not being commingled with other operations and might actually lower their utilities, because you don't know. So, okay.
Mr. Mayor, to speak to Mr. Sullivan's concerns, I think one of the things that was really difficult for American Girl Grill was the fact that they did not get any of the beer or liquor sales. And anyone who's run a restaurant where beer and liquor are sold will tell you that that is the majority of their business and a majority of their profit. With this contract, this group will have the right and the ability to use those funds and to put those into their budget. So I think that we are creating a situation with this agreement that is going to be much more reasonable as far as them being able to survive, them being able to provide the product that we want, and to make this work.
I just wanted us to go in with eyes wide open. That was
Okay.
all. Yeah.
Can I make one
It's
more comment?
definitely hold on a second. It's definitely a concern. But looking at their background with the 3 restaurants and stuff, I figured if they were happy, if they could agree to this number, then I think they know what they're doing. But yes, we definitely have to. That's why we put the 1-year negotiation in there.
Right.
I think, Mr. Mayor, I think one of the differences, they do have 3 other restaurants. They've been in business a long time. I've talked with them. They are restaurant owners and understand the inventories and the employee concerns and how to train staff and do inventory and to run their business. So I don't see that being a problem. I'd like to make a motion to approve their contract based on the changes that we made, that on exclusive concession rights, we add that not excluding special events permits. And the other one was where we took the city manager out and put the finance manager and Chris in there. But
Mr. Mayor, I would ask Nadia, is that
And the
compatible
increase-
with what you're,
And the increased cost of utilities is
And
gonna be
increased
measured
cost
at
of-
All right.
20%.
yes.
I'll then second the motion.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Hearing none, motion carries unanimous.
Keep it up to Susan.
Thank you.
Here, Susan, she wrote those 2 changes down for me.
I didn't pay attention. I thought they were here. Work session. City manager, it's time for your reports. Welcome back.
Mayor, I only have one report, and that is to update on the press release that we sent out today calling for the general election on November 6th, and we listed the political sign codes that Councilor Sullivan has asked us about. A few points on that. One states that all political signs are prohibited in public right-of-ways. The second says that political signs shall be limited to 36 square feet and 8 feet in height. And the third says that the political sign shall be removed no later than 10 days following the closing of the polls for the election. That's in the press release. We're sending it out. We sent it out today so that everyone can read this, and all 6 of our candidates and all the other candidates around the world that are advertising in Lago Vista will be clear of this.
Were they sent that directly, or do they have to go to the press release?
We haven't sent it to the candidates directly. We only sent it to the press release, the avenues that we send out to. So we can send this directly to them because I believe we have, we have 2 here, so I could hand them a copy to the left. And then there's a third. He has one electronically, so that's 50% of them have it now. We'll get it to him, Mayor.
Okay. Future meetings. Number 8, consider our schedule and items for future council meetings.
Mr. Mayor, the Golf Course Advisory Committee will be making a request at our next meeting for funding and for direction on having a grand opening of our new facility at the golf course. And I would like to have that included on the agenda.
For the 18th?
Yes, for the 18th. And we're looking at, I think it's the second week of November. It's their feeling that that would be long enough for Habanero Grill to get his feet on the ground, be able to function with a large gathering. That'll give them 4 weeks.
So is the grand opening the 18th or? the
Well,
1st?
they're coming with a proposal for a date and a time, and I'd like to be able to present that at the next meeting.
Okay. What else?
We got a proclamation coming next time.
All right. Good. All right. It's going to be a quick meeting.
Well, I'm sure something gets.
Yeah, no, there's already quite a few items on there that he's got on his book, so.
Yeah.
Josh tries to make us work.
We just added more. All right, executive session. Convene into I cannot speak. Convene into executive session pursuant to sections 551.071, advice of counsel, 551.072, real property, 551.074, personnel, section 551.087, economic development, Texas Government Code, and section 1.05, Texas disciplinary rules of professional conduct regarding A, consultation with legal counsel concerning any regular meeting agenda item requiring confidential attorney-client advice necessitated by the deliberation or discussion of said item as needed. B, pending or threatened litigation pertaining to cause number D-1-GN-16-002483, Villa Montecino LP versus City of Lago Vista, Travis County 200th District Court. C, consultation with legal counsel and discussion concerning possible real estate acquisition, management, or divestiture and attendant matters thereto. D, consultation with legal counsel regarding contractual claims or possible claims or charges, contractual modifications, and questions related thereto. E, consultation with legal counsel and deliberate economic development incentives for projects located within the city of Lago Vista. F, consultation with legal counsel concerning the duties of present public servants under the City of Lago Vista's Ethics Ordinance. We convene at 9:30 p.m.
Another reason why I don't bring my computer, because we've always forgot to chose the record. Start bringing my laptop.
Yeah, he added that. Maybe like 6 weeks ago, 2 months.
Okay.
Something like that.
Yeah, I just missed it.
Sir.
Yeah, he's got our back.
Recognize the face.
Sure.